Well, hello everybody, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We are live once again for the next segment of the ongoing J.R.R. Tolkien Readathon. This is where we are in the middle of the Lord of the Rings now, halfway through the Two Towers, actually. And hello everybody, I'm your gentle reader, Clifford Broadway from XSN, the online network. And here we go with The Two Towers, Book 4, Chapter 4, of Herbs and Stewed Rabbit. For the few hours of daylight that were left, they rested, shifting into the shade as the sun moved, until at last the shadow of the western rim of their dell grew long, and darkness filled all the hollow. Then they ate a little, and drank sparingly. Gollum ate nothing, but he accepted water gladly. "Soon get more now," he said, licking his lips. "Good water runs down in streams to the great river. Nice water in the lands we are going to. Smeagol will get food there too, perhaps. He's very hungry. Yes, Gollum." He set his two large flat hands on his shrunken belly, and a pale green light came into his eyes. The dusk was deep when at length they set out, creeping over the westward rim of the dell and fading like ghosts into the broken country on the borders of the road. The moon was now 3 nights from the full, but it did not climb over the mountains until nearly midnight, and the early night was very dark. A single red light burned high up in the towers of the Teeth, but otherwise no sign could be seen or heard of the sleepless watch on the Morannon. Excuse me. For many miles, the red eye seemed to stare at them as they fled, stumbling through a barren, stony country. They did not dare to take the road, but they kept it on their left, following its line as well as they could at a little distance. At last, when night was growing old and they were already weary, for they had taken only one short rest, the eye dwindled to a small fiery point and then vanished. They had turned the dark northern shoulder of the lower mountains and were heading southwards. With hearts strangely lightened, they now rested again, but not for long. They were not going quick enough for Gollum. By his reckoning, it was nearly 30 leagues from the Morannon to the crossroads above Osgiliath, and he hoped to cover that distance in 4 journeys. So soon they struggled on once more until the dawn began to spread slowly on the wide, gray solitude. They had then walked almost 8 leagues, and the hobbits could not have gone any further, even if they had dared.
Fans in the chat room said you skipped a chapter.
Yeah, thank you, we did. Funny how that works. That's right. At least I know of herbs and good rabbit.
Let's start back with...
Yeah, that's excellent, yes. Yeah. The Black Gate is closed, excuse me. How hilarious. That's funny. Very, very, very funny. Now, the reason why a hobbit's stomach thinks for itself, and when I saw that of herbs and stewed rabbits, all I could think about was my hobbity delight at having a brace of conies, and I wanted to get right to the potatoes part. You know, I was really looking forward to the potatoes part. Anyways, my enthusiasm. All right, let's just start that over again. So, reset button,
roll.
pop.
We'll do it live.
Yes. That's really nice, yes, thank you. That's good. So, are you doing a new recording now from the top? We can fix all this in editing, right? Yes, of course.
We're live, Cliff.
I know, we'll fix it in post. That's the joke. Yes, hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Just throw that book into the fire behind you.
And if there was a fireplace behind me, I would right about now.
There it is. There's a dragon.
Happy Torn Tuesday, everybody. We want to say hello. This is our usual Tuesday broadcast. This is your host, Bonnie Tyler, with our... Oh, no, actually, I'm Brenda Vaccaro tonight. So here we are with my voice sounding like this. Here's your Brenda Vaccaro voice for the night. Welcome back, ladies and germs. We're continuing our ongoing live J.R.R. Tolkien readathon. We've been going 10 continuous days, I think, since Christmas morning. So we did The Hobbit in 2 days, and of course The Lord of the Rings is proving to take just a wee bit longer. Here we go. We are in the middle of the Two Towers, which is separated into books 3 and books 4, as you know, and we'll have books 5 and 6 in Return of the King eventually. But right now, this is the Two Towers, book 4, chapter 3, The Black Gate is closed. Before the next day dawned, their journey to Mordor was over. The marshes and the desert were behind them. Before them, darkling against a pallid sky, the great mountains reared their threatening heads. Upon the west of Mordor marched the gloomy range of Efelduath, the Mountains of Shadow, and upon the north the broken peaks and barren ridges of Ered Lithuai, grey as ash. But as these ranges approached one another, being indeed but parts of one great wall about the mournful plains of Lithlad and of Gorgoroth, and the bitter inland sea of Nirnin amidmost, they swung out long arms northward. Excuse me. And between these arms there was a deep defile. This was Cirith Gorgor, the Haunted Pass, the entrance to the land of the enemy. High cliffs lowered upon either side, and thrust forward from its mouth were 2 sheer hills, black-boned and bare. Upon them stood the teeth of Mordor, 2 towers, strong and tall. In days long past, they were built by the men of Gondor in their pride and power, after the overthrow of Sauron and his flight, lest he should seek to return to his old realm. But the strength of Gondor failed, and men slept, and for long years the towers stood empty. Then Sauron returned. Now the watchtowers, which had fallen into decay, were repaired and filled with arms, and garrisoned with ceaseless vigilance. Stony-faced they were, with dark window holes staring north and east and west, and each window was full of sleepless eyes. Across the mouth of the pass, from cliff to cliff, the Dark Lord had built a rampart of stone. In it there was a single gate of iron, and upon its battlement sentinels paced unceasingly. Beneath the hills on either side, the rock was bored into 100 caves and maggot holes, and there a host of orcs lurked, ready at a signal to issue forth like black ants going to war. None could pass the teeth of Mordor and not feel their bite, unless they were summoned by Sauron, or knew the secret passwords that would open the Morannon, the black gate of his land. Excuse me. The 2 hobbits gazed at the tower and the wall in despair. Even from a distance they could see in the dim light the movement of the black guards upon the wall, and the patrols before the gate. They lay now peering over the edge of a rocky hollow, beneath the outstretched shadow of the northernmost buttress of Efelduath. Winging the heavy air in a straight flight, a crow, maybe, would have flown but a furlong from their hiding place to the black summit of the nearer tower. A faint smoke curled above it, as fire smouldered in the hill beneath. Day came, and the fallow sun blinked over the lifeless ridges of Ered Lithuai. Then suddenly the cry of brazen-throated trumpets was heard. From the watchtowers they blared, and far away from hidden holds and outposts in the hills came answering calls, and further still, remote but deep and ominous, there echoed in the hollow land beyond the mighty horns and drums of Barad-dûr. Another dreadful day of fear and toil had come to Mordor, and the night guards were summoned to their dungeons and deep halls, and the day guards, evil-eyed and fell, were marching to their posts. Steel gleamed dimly on the battlement. "Well, here we are," said Sam. "Here's the gate, and it looks to me as if that's about as far as we are ever going to get. My word, but the gaffer would have a thing or two to say if he saw me now. Often said I'd come to a bad end if I didn't watch my step. He did. But now I don't suppose I'll ever see the old fellow again. He'll miss his chance of 'I told 'ee so, Sam.' More's the pity. He could go on telling me as long as he'd got breath, if only I could see his old face again. But I'd have to get a wash first, or he wouldn't know me. I suppose it's no good asking what way do we go now? We can't go no further unless we want to ask the orcs for a lift." No, said Gollum. "No use. We can't go further. Smeagol said so. He said, 'We'll go to the gate, and then we'll see.' And we do see. Oh, yes, my precious, we do see. Smeagol knew hobbits could not go this way. Oh, yes, Smeagol knew." "Then what the plague did you bring us here for?" said Sam, not feeling in the mood to be just or reasonable. "Master said so. Master says bring us to the gate, so good Smeagol does so. Master said so, wise master." "I did," said Frodo. His face was grim and set, but resolute. He was filthy, haggard, and pinched with weariness, but he cowered no longer, and his eyes were clear. "I said so because I propose to enter Mordor, and I know no other way. Therefore I shall go this way. I do not ask anyone to go with me." "No, no, master," wailed Gollum, pawing at him and seeming in great distress. "No use that way, no use. Don't take the precious to him. He'll eat us all. If he gets it, he'll eat all the world. Keep it, nice master, and be kind to Smeagol. Don't let him have it, or go away, go to nice places, and give it back to little Smeagol. Yes, master, give it back, eh? Smeagol will keep it safe. He will do lots of good, especially to nice hobbits. Hobbits, go home. Don't go to the gate." "I am commanded to go to the land of Mordor, and therefore I shall go," said Frodo. "If there is only one way, then I must take it. What comes after must come." Sam said nothing. The look on Frodo's face was enough for him. He knew that words of his were useless. And after all, he never had any real hope in the affair from the beginning. But being a cheerful hobbit, he had not needed hope, as long as despair could be postponed. Now they were come to the bitter end. But he had stuck to his master all the way. That was what he had chiefly come for, and he would still stick to him. His master would not go to Mordor alone. Sam would go with him, and at any rate, they would get rid of Gollum. Gollum, however, did not intend to be got rid of yet. He knelt at Frodo's feet, wringing his hands and squeaking. "Not this way, master," he pleaded. "There is another way. Oh, yes, there is another way. Darker, more difficult to find, more secret. But Smeagol knows it, yes. Let Smeagol show you." "Another way?" said Frodo doubtfully, looking down at Gollum with searching eyes. Yes, indeed. There was another way. Smeagol found it. Let's go and see if it's still there." "You have not spoken of this before." No, master did not ask. Master did not say what he meant to do. He does not tell poor Smeagol. He says, 'Smeagol, take me to the gate, and then goodbye. Smeagol can run away and be good.' But now he says, I propose I purpose to enter Mordor this way. So Smeagol is very afraid. He does not want to lose nice master, and he promised. Master made him promise to save the precious. But Master's going to take it to him, straight to the Black Hand. If Master will go this way, so Smeagol must save them both. And he thinks of another way that there was once upon a time. Nice Master, Smeagol very good, always helps. Sam frowned. If he could have bored holes in Gollum with his eyes, he would have done. His mind was full of doubt. To all appearances, Gollum was genuinely distressed and anxious to help Frodo, but Sam, remembering the overheard debate, found it hard to believe that the long-submerged Smeagol had come out on top. That voice, at any rate, had not had the last word in the debate. Sam's guess was that the Smeagol and Gollum halves, or what in his mind he called Slinker and Stinker, had made a truce and a temporary alliance. Neither wanted the enemy to get the ring, but both wished to keep Frodo from capture and under their eye as long as possible. And at any rate, as long as Stinker still had a chance of laying hands on his precious. Whether there really was another way into Mordor, Sam doubted. And it is a good thing neither half of the old villain don't know what Master means to do, he thought. If he knew that Mr. Frodo is trying to put an end to his precious, for good and all, there'd be trouble pretty quick, I bet. Anyhow, old Stinker is so frightened of the enemy, and he's under orders of some kind from him, or was, that he'd give us away rather than be caught helping us, and rather than let his precious be melted, maybe. At least that's my idea. And I hope the Master will think it out carefully. He's as wise as any, but he's soft-hearted, and that's what he is. It's beyond any Gamgee to guess what he'll do next. Frodo did not answer Gollum at once. While these doubts were passing through Sam's slow but shrewd mind, he stood gazing out towards the dark cliff of Cirith Gorgor. The hollow in which they had taken refuge was delved in the side of a low hill, at some little height, above a long trench-like valley that lay between it and the outer buttresses of the mountain wall. In the midst of the valley stood the black foundations of the western watchtower. By morning light, the roads that converged upon the gate of Mordor could now be clearly seen, pale and dusty, one winding back northwards, another dwindling eastwards into the mists that clung about the feet of Ered Lithuai, and a third that ran towards him. As it bent sharply round the tower, it entered a narrow defile and passed not far below the hollow where he stood. Westward to his right it turned, skirting the shoulders of the mountains, and went off southwards into the deep shadows that mantled all the western sides of Fel Duath. Beyond his sight it journeyed on into the narrow land between the mountains and the great river. As he gazed, Frodo became aware that there was a great stir and a movement on the plain. It seemed as if whole armies were on the march, though, for the most part, they were hidden by the reeks and fumes drifting from the fens and wastes beyond. But here and there he caught the gleam of spears and helmets, and over the levels, beside the roads, horsemen could be seen riding in many companies. He remembered his vision from afar upon Amon Hen, so few days before, though now it seemed many years ago. Then he knew that the hope that had for one wild moment stirred in his heart was vain. The trumpets had not rung in challenge, but in greeting. This was no assault upon the Dark Lord by the men of Gondor, risen like avenging ghosts from the graves of valor long passed away. These were men of other race, out of the wide east lands, gathering to the summons of their overlord. Armies that had encamped before his gate by night, and now marched in to swell his mounting power. As if, excuse me, as if suddenly made fully aware of the peril of their position, alone, in the growing light of day, so near to this vast menace, Frodo quickly drew his frail grey hood close upon his head, and stepped down into the dell. Then he turned to Gollum. "Smeagol," he said, "I will trust you once more. Indeed, it seems that I must do so, and that it is my fate to receive help from you, where I least looked for it, and your fate to help me whom you long pursued with evil purpose. So far you have deserved well of me, and have kept your promise truly. Truly, I say and mean," he added with a glance at Sam, "for twice now we have been in your power, and you have done no harm to us, nor have you tried to take from me what you once sought. May the third time prove the best, but I warn you, Smeagol, you are in danger." "Yes, yes, master," said Gollum. "Dreadful danger. Smeagol's bones shake to think of it, but he doesn't run away. He must help, nice master." I did not mean the danger that we all share," said Frodo. I mean a danger to yourself alone. You swore a promise by what you call the precious. Remember that. It will hold you to it, but it will seek a way to twist it to your own undoing. Already you are being twisted. You revealed yourself to me just now, foolishly. Give it back to Smeagol, you said. Do not say that again. Do not let that thought grow in you. You will never get it back, but the desire of it may betray you to a bitter end. You will never get it back. In the last need, Smeagol, I should put on the precious, and the precious mastered you long ago. If I, wearing it, were to command you, you would obey, even if it were to leap from a precipice or to cast yourself into the fire. And such would be my command. So have a care, Smeagol." Sam looked at his master with approval, but also with surprise. There was a look in his face and a tone in his voice that he had not known before. It had always been a notion of his that the kindness of dear Mr. Frodo was of such a high degree that it must imply a fair measure of blindness. Of course, he also firmly held the incompatible belief that Mr. Frodo was the wisest person in the world, with the possible exception of old Bilbo and of Gandalf. Gollum, in his own way and with much more excuse, as his acquaintance was much briefer, may have made a similar mistake, confusing kindness with blindness. At any rate, this speech abashed and terrified him. He grovelled on the ground and could speak no clear words but, "Nice, master." Frodo waited patiently for a while. Then he spoke again, less sternly. "Come now, Gollum, or Smeagol if you wish. Tell me of this other way, and show me, if you can, what hope there is in it. Enough to justify me in turning aside from my plain path. I am in haste." But Gollum was in a pitiable state, and Frodo's threat had quite unnerved him. It was not easy to get any clear account out of him, amid his mumblings and squeakings and the frequent interruptions in which he crawled on the floor and begged them both to be kind to poor little Smeagol. After a while, he grew a little calmer, and Frodo gathered, bit by bit, that, if a traveller followed the road that turned west of Ifelduath, he He would come in time to a crossing in a circle of dark trees. On the right, a road went down to Osgiliath and the bridges of the Anduin. In the middle, the road went on southwards. On, said Gollum. We never went that way, but they say it goes 100 leagues until you can see the great water that is never still. There are lots of fishes there, and big birds eat fishes, nice birds, but we never went there, alas, no. We never had a chance. And further still, there are more lands, they say, but the yellow face is very hot there, and there are seldom any clouds. And the men are fierce and have dark faces. We do not want to see that land. No, said Frodo, but do not wander from your road. What of the third turning? Oh yes, there is a third way, said Gollum. That is the road to the left. At once it begins to climb up, winding and climbing back towards the tall shadows. When it turns round the black rock, you'll see it. Suddenly you'll see it above you, and you'll want to hide. See it? See it? What? What will you see? The old fortress. Very old, very horrible now. We used to hear tales from the south when Smeagol was young long ago. Oh, yes, we used to tell lots of tales in the evening, sitting by the banks of the great river in the Willow Lands, when the river was younger, too. Gollum, Gollum. He began to weep and mutter. The hobbits waited patiently. Tales out of the south, Gollum went on again, about the tall men with the shining eyes, and their houses like hills of stone, and the silver crown of their king, and his white tree. Wonderful tales. They built very tall towers, and one they raised was silver white, and in it there was a stone like the moon, and round it were great white walls. Oh yes, there were many tales about the Tower of the Moon. That would be Minas Ithil, that Isildur, the son of Elendil, built, said Frodo. It was Isildur who cut off the finger of the enemy. Yes, he has only 4 on his black hand, but they are enough, said Gollum, shuddering. And he hated Isildur's city. What does he not hate? Said Frodo. But what has the Tower of the Moon to do with us? Well, master, there it was, and there it is. The tall tower and the white houses and the wall, but not nice now, not beautiful. He conquered it long ago. It is a very terrible place now. Travelers shiver when they see it. They creep out of sight. They avoid its shadow. But master will have to go that way. That is the only other way. For the mountains are lower there, and the old road goes up, until it reaches a dark pass at the top, and then it goes down, down again to Gorgoroth. His voice sank into a whisper, and he shuddered. But how will that help us? Asked Sam. Surely the enemy knows all about his own mountains, and that road will be guarded as close as this. The tower isn't empty, is it? Oh, no, not empty, whispered Gollum. It seems empty, but it isn't. Oh, no. Very dreadful things live there. Orcs, yes, always orcs. But worse things live there, too. The road climbs right under the shadow of the walls and passes the gate. Nothing moves on the road that they don't know about. The things inside know. The silent watchers. So that's your advice, is it? Said Sam. That we should go another long march south to find ourselves in the same fix, or a worse one, when we could get there if we ever do? No, no indeed, said Gollum. Hobbits must see, must try to understand. He does not expect attack that way. His eye is all around, but it attends more to some places than to others. He can't see everything all at once, not yet. You see, he has conquered all the country west of the shadowy mountains down to the river. And he holds the bridges now. He thinks no one can come to the moon tower without fighting big battle at the bridges or getting lots of boats which they cannot hide and he will know about. You seem to know a lot about what he's doing and thinking, said Sam. Have you been talking to him lately, or just hobnobbing with orcs? Nice hobbit. Not nice hobbit, not sensible, said Gollum, giving Sam an angry glance and turning to Frodo. Smeagol has talked to orcs, yes, of course, before we met Master, and to many peoples. He has walked very far. And what he says now many peoples are saying. It's here in the north that the big danger is for him and for us. He will come out of the Black Gate one day soon. That is the only way big armies can come. But away down west, he is not afraid. And there are the Silent Watchers. Just so, said Sam, not to be put off. And so we are to walk up and knock at their gate and ask if we're on the right road for Mordor, or are they too silent to answer? It's not sense. We might as well do it here and save ourselves a long tramp. Don't make jokes about it, hissed Gollum. It isn't funny. No, not amusing. It's not sense to try and get into Mordor at all. But if Master says I must go, or I will go, then we must try. He must try some way. But he must not go to the terrible city. Oh, no, of course not. That is where Smeagol helps. Nice Smeagol, though no one tells him what it is all about. Smeagol helps again. He found it. He knows it. What did you find? Asked Frodo. Gollum crouched down, and his voice sank to a whisper again. A little path leading up into the mountains, and then a stair, a narrow stair. Oh, yes, very long and narrow. And then more stairs, and then, his voice sank even lower, a tunnel, a dark tunnel, and at last a little cleft and a path high above the mountain pass. It was that way that Smeagol got out of the darkness. But it was years ago. The path may have vanished now, but perhaps not. Perhaps not. Oh, I don't like the sound of it at all, said Sam. Sounds too easy at any rate in the telling. If that path is still there, it'll be guarded too. Wasn't it guarded, Gollum? As he said this, he caught, or he fancied he caught, a green gleam in Gollum's eye. Gollum muttered, but did not reply. Is it not guarded? Asked Frodo sternly. And did you escape out of the darkness, Smeagol, or were you not rather permitted to depart upon an errand? That, at least, is what Aragorn thought, who found you by the dead marshes some years ago. It's a lie, hissed Gollum, and an evil light came into his eyes at the naming of Aragorn. He lied on me, yes, he did. I did escape all by my poor self. Indeed, I was told to seek for the precious, and I have searched and searched, of course I have. But not for the black one. The precious was ours. It was mine, I tell you. I did escape. Frodo felt a strange certainty that in this matter Gollum was for once not so far from the truth as might be suspected, that he had somehow found a way out of Mordor, and at least believed that it was by his own cunning. For one thing, he noticed that Gollum used I, and that seemed usually to be a sign, on its rare appearances, that some remnants of old truth and sincerity, were for the moment on top. But even if Gollum could be trusted on this point, Frodo did not forget the wiles of the enemy. The escape may have been allowed or arranged, and well known in the Dark Tower, and in any case, Gollum was plainly keeping a good deal back. I ask you again, he said, is not this secret way guarded? But the name of Aragorn had put Gollum into a sullen mood. He had all the injured air of a liar, suspected when for once he has told the truth or part of it. He did not answer. Is it not guarded? Frodo repeated. Yes, perhaps. No safe places in this country, said Gollum sulkily. No safe places, but Master must try it or go home. No other way. They could not get him to say any more. The name of the perilous place and the high pass he could not tell or would not. Its name was Cirith Ungol, a name of dreadful rumor. Aragorn could perhaps have told them that name and its significance. Gandalf would have warned them. But they were alone, and Aragorn was far away, and Gandalf stood amid the ruin of Isengard and strove with Saruman, delayed by treason. Yet even as he spoke his last words to Saruman, and the Palantir crashed in fire upon the steps of Orthanc, his thought was ever upon Frodo and Samwise. Over the long leagues his mind sought for them in hope and pity. Maybe Frodo felt it, not knowing it, as he had upon Amon Hen, even though he believed that Gandalf was gone forever into the shadow and Moria far away. He sat upon the ground for a long while, silent, his head bowed, striving to recall all that Gandalf had said to him, but for this choice he could recall no counsel. Indeed, Gandalf's guidance had been taken from them too soon, while the dark land was still very far away. How they could enter it at the last, Gandalf had not said. Perhaps he could not say. Into the stronghold of the enemy in the north, into Dol Guldur, he had once ventured, but into Mordor, to the Mountain of Fire, and to Barad-dûr, since the Dark Lord rose in power again, had he ever journeyed there? Frodo did not think so. And here he was, a little halfling from the Shire, a simple hobbit of the quiet countryside, expected to find a way where the great ones could not go, or dared not go. It was an evil fate, but he had taken it on himself, in his own sitting room in the far-off spring of another year, so remote now that it was like a chapter in a story of the world's youth, when the trees of silver and gold were still in bloom. This was an evil choice. Which way should he choose? And if both led to terror and death, what good lay in choice? The day drew on. A deep silence fell upon the little grey hollow where they lay, so near to the borders of the land of fear. A silence that could be felt, as if it were a thick veil that cut them off from all the world about them. Above them was a dome of pale sky, barred with fleeting smoke, but it seemed high and far away, as if seen through great deeps of air, heavy with brooding thought. Not even an eagle poised against the sun would have marked the hobbit sitting there under the weight of doom, silent, not moving, shrouded in their thin grey cloaks. For a moment he might have paused to consider Gollum, a tiny figure sprawling on the ground. There perhaps lay the famished skeleton of some child of men, its ragged garment still clinging to it, its long arms and legs almost bone-white and bone-thin, no flesh worth a peck. Frodo's head was bowed over his knees, but Sam leaned back with hands behind his head and staring out of his hood at the empty sky. At least for a long while it was empty. Then presently Sam thought he saw a dark, bird-like figure wheel away into the circle of his sight, and hover, and then wheel away again. 2 more followed, and then a 4th. They were very small to look at, yet he knew, somehow, that they were huge, with a vast stretch of pinion, flying at a great height. He covered his eyes and bent forward, cowering. The same warning fear was on him as he had felt in the presence of the Black Riders, the helpless horror that had come with the cry in the wind and the shadow on the moon, though now it was not so crushing or compelling. The menace was more remote, but menace it was. Frodo felt it too. His thought was broken. He stirred and shivered, but he did not look up. Gollum huddled himself together like a cornered spider. The winged shapes wheeled and stooped swiftly down, speeding back to Mordor. Sam took a deep breath. The riders are about again and up in the air, he said in a hoarse whisper. I saw them. Do you think they could see us? They were very high up, and if they are Black Riders, same as before, then they can't see much by daylight, can they? No, perhaps not, said Frodo, but their steeds could see, and these winged creatures that they ride on now, they can probably see more than any other creature. They are like great carrion birds. They are looking for something. The enemy is on the watch, I fear. The feeling of dread passed, but the enfolding silence was broken. For some time they had been cut off from the world, as if in an invisible island. Now they were laid bare again. Peril had returned, but still Frodo did not speak to Gollum or make his choice. His eyes were closed, as if he were dreaming, or looking inward into his heart and memory. At last he stirred and stood up, and it seemed that he was about to speak and to decide. But, hark, he said, what is that? A new fear was upon them. They heard singing and hoarse shouting. At first it seemed a long way off, but it drew nearer. It was coming towards them. It leaped into all their minds that the Black Wings had spied them and had sent armed soldiers to seize them. No speed seemed too great for these terrible servants of Sauron. They crouched, listening. The voices and the clink of weapons and harness were very close. Frodo and Sam loosened their small swords in their sheaths. Flight was impossible. Gollum rose slowly and crawled insect-like to the lip of the hollow. Very cautiously, he raised himself inch by inch till he could peer over it between 2 broken points of stone. He remained there without moving for some time, making no sound. Presently the voices began to recede again, and then they slowly faded away. Far off, a horn blew on the ramparts of the Morannon, and then quietly Gollum drew back and slipped down into the hollow. More men going to Mordor, he said in a low voice. Dark faces? We have not seen men like these before. No, Smeagol has not. They are fierce. They have black eyes and long black hair and gold rings in their ears. Yes, lots of beautiful gold. And some have red paint on their cheeks and red cloaks, and their flags are red. And the tips of their spears, and they have round shields, yellow and black with big spikes. Not nice, very cruel, wicked men they look, almost as bad as orcs, and much bigger. Smeagol thinks they have come out of the south beyond the great river's end. They came up that road. They have passed on to the Black Gate, but more may follow. Always more people coming to Mordor. One day all the peoples will be inside. Were there any Oliphaunts? Asked Sam, forgetting his fear in his eagerness for news of strange places. No, No Oliphaunts? What are Oliphaunts? Said Gollum. Sam stood up, putting his hands behind his back, as he always did when speaking poetry, and began. Grey as a mouse, big as a house, nose like a snake, I make the earth shake as I tramp through the grass, trees crack as I pass. With horns in my mouth I will walk in the south, flapping big ears beyond count of years. I stump round and round, never lie on the ground, not even to die. Oliphaunt am I, biggest of all, huge, old, and tall. If you'd ever met me, you wouldn't forget me. If you never do, you won't think I'm true, but old Oliphaunts am I, and I never lie. That, said Sam, when he had finished reciting, that's a rhyme we have in the Shire. Nonsense, maybe, and maybe not. But we have our tales, too, and news of the South, you know. In the old days, hobbits used to go on their travels now and again. Not that many ever came back, and not that all they said was believed. News from Bree, and not sure as Shire talk, as the saying goes. But I've heard tales of the big folk down away in the Sunlands. Swertings, we call 'em in our tales, and they ride on Oliphaunts, 'tis said, when they fight. They put houses and towers on the Oliphaunts' backs and all, and Oliphaunts throw rocks and trees at one another. So when you said men out of the south, all in red and gold, I said, were there any Oliphaunts? For if there was, I was going to take a look, risk or no. But now I don't suppose I'll ever see an Oliphaunt. Maybe there ain't no such beast, he sighed. No Oliphaunts, said Gollum again. Smeagol has not heard of them. He does not want to see them. He does not want them to be. Smeagol wants to go away from here and hide somewhere safer. Smeagol wants Master to go. Nice Master, won't he come with Smeagol? Frodo stood up. He had laughed in the midst of all his cares when Sam trotted out the old fireside rhyme of Oliphaunt, and the laugh had released him from hesitation. I wish we had 1,000 Oliphants, with Gandalf on a white one at their head, he said. Then we'd break away into this evil land, perhaps. But we've not, just our own tired legs, that's all. Well, Smeagol, the third turn may turn the best. I will come with you. Good master, wise master, nice master, cried Gollum in delight, patting Frodo's knees. Good master, then rest now, nice hobbits, under the shadow of the stones. Close under the stones, rest and lie quiet till the yellow face goes away. Then we can go quickly. Soft and quick as shadows we must be. That's the end of Chapter 3, and in a very, very brief moment, we will be right back with Chapter 4, properly in order. Oh, jolly old England.
Jolly old England.
The redcoats are coming, and here they have
And
arrived.
of course they have red packaging.
I love this. This is from our dear friend, Stargate Geek, Emily. Hello, Emily, dear.
Awesome.
This is Christmas a little bit late, but better late than never.
Let's do it.
It just arrived.
Can
and
I open it?
Can you open this? Look, don't read it. Don't read the little label on the outside.
No.
Yeah, secret
Okay.
surprise. We're having our little Torn Tuesday live.
Open it with an axe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, watch yourself.
That's how he got this, ladies and gentlemen.
Yo, chill.
It was me just getting a little crazy with the axe. And oh, what's inside? Oh,
We
this.
have bubble wrap inside.
I love me some bubble wrap.
It's like an unboxing live on
Ooh. Ooh,
These
pop,
are
pop, pop.
fancy envelopes. They're very shiny.
Oh, how nice. These are lovely.
Cliff
Justin.
and Justin. Bless
Excuse me. If I do that again, my brains are
Wait,
going to
wait.
come out my nose.
you. Smells like England.
Smells like Heathrow Airport. No, it doesn't. It smells like the Oxford countryside. Salisbury. It smells like the chalk hills of Salisbury. You know, the White Horse of Effington. Oh. Oh, these are nice. These are nice. What you got here?
What you got?
Oh, yummy. Ooh,
Ooh.
yummy. These are lovely.
No, they're wearable.
Are these wearable?
No, they're not yummy. You don't eat these.
No, they're not. Oh.
I don't have pierced ears though. Does she
Well,
know
look
that?
at these. These are beautiful. Are they earrings?
No, I hope not.
No. Oh, this is a beautiful
Dude,
handmade
this is-
card.
Look at my card. It's
This
got
is gorgeous.
Gold foil,
Beautiful.
Gold embossed. May your Christmas cheer run through the year.
May your Christmas cheer run through the year. This is beautiful. Have a very Merry Christmas. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much, Emily. Let's take a look.
So wonderful.
These are
To Justin from Emily Stargate.
they're handmade cufflinks.
Enjoy the handmade cufflinks.
Handmade
A pair of
cufflinks.
cufflinks, my favorite color.
Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa!
And
These
is
are
it-
beautiful.
Is this not the color I've been wearing lately?
Yes, it is.
My
It is.
shoes, my jacket,
And your
my
T-shirts.
shirt.
Oh, these are really awesome.
Oh.
You see, that makes one end permanent that won't go through the buttonhole, and the other one is easy to detach. It's a smaller size.
Yes.
So perfect cufflinks.
Wait, did you
Handmade.
get the same amount of words I did?
Handmade cufflinks.
Yes, you got the same amount of words.
Isn't that? But mine was sealed with
But
a
you
kiss.
got more words.
My envelope was sealed with a kiss. Thank
Wait,
you, Emily.
I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
I got a from.
You got 2 more.
I got a
words.
from. Oh no, you got a from.
Enjoy the cufflinks. They're handmade. Enjoy the handmade cufflinks. You got 2 extra words.
That's because
She-
Emily's my sweetheart. Thank you,
She
Emily.
likes you more.
She likes me more.
I
Oh, thank you,
s-
sweetheart.
I like you just as equal.
Bonk.
Thank you.
Merry
Emily.
Christmas and lovely holiday greetings.
This is
And Happy New Year,
you know, the,
Emily. Thank
the
you.
amount of warmth and outpouring from our friends and
Indeed.
fans this year has been just so rewarding.
Indeed.
And I'm so happy that you're reading The Lord of the Rings with everybody. And
I'm so glad that we have these lovely people.
since Christmas, you were here Christmas Day reading for everybody.
This is our 10th continuous day. And even though my voice is really kind of thrashed, I will sally forth because day after tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, we will have a special guest star, Sean
Keep it
Astin. Sean Astin is not
has
keep it
agreed
secret.
to give you a
he's,
break.
He's coming here
he's
to
watching you.
He's going to rescue me and he's going to read the choices of Master Samwise.
The chapter.
The chapter.
His chapter.
He's going to read the chapter
So he's
where
been
he
wa-
saves Frodo from
Everybody-
Shelob.
Everybody's been watching you.
Yes, I've been doing this for
and
10 days.
Sean called you today and said,
Yep, Sean is
looks
like-
like you need a break.
Do you know what Sean said? He said, I've always wanted to read this out loud. And he's like, it's great what you're doing. So he jumped right on board.
It's like a Christmas miracle 2 weeks later.
In 2 days, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first.
I'm so
Special
excited.
special guest
This is amazing.
Sean Astin.
Now,
And
Cliff,
these are lovely too. These are super lovely.
I'm not joking. Cliff can vouch. This is my color this year.
It's a perfect color.
The people
Chartreuse.
don't know.
Chartreuse.
I can't even wear it because there's.
You can't even spell it.
Well, this I
can't
can't
even
even
spell
wear
it.
it on camera
Because
of
the green screen.
of the fireplace.
Yes,
I
the
would
fireplace.
I would catch on fire.
Look at how they look right now if I hold them up like this. My cufflinks are probably
Watch this.
invisible.
It's like a magic trick.
There. This is lovely, and thank you again, Emily.
Thank you, Emily, so much. And I've listened to the chat room. You guys were talking about Snoke and holograms and stuff, so we've got a real treat for you.
Do you know
Coming
what? Several critics have said that Snoke looks just too much like
Andy Serkis.
a Gollum. Gollum.
Because it's Andy.
You got-
Gollum looks like Andy.
He doesn't sound like Gollum, but he looks like a character
As
design.
soon as he started talking, I could tell it was Andy.
Yeah, I couldn't tell it was Andy's voice. I couldn't.
Okay. Well, enjoy your book.
Thank you. We're going to continue our readathon. Thank you, Stargate Geek, and have a lovely night. Have a lovely night. Yes. Yes. Cliff, did I get the parcel? Yes, I did. When? Yeah, day after tomorrow. That's right. Sean Astin will be reading a chapter on hashtag LOTR live read. So if you guys want to start tweeting about it, go ahead and talk to all the fans, tweet to all your friends. But when you use your tweets and posts on Facebook, please use hashtag LOTR live read. Bam. Okay? Now, I'm going to get some water, and we're going to continue our live readathon right here and right now. Thursday. The answer is Thursday, day after tomorrow, the 7th. That's right, Thursday the 7th. Sorry I can't answer a FaceTime call in the middle of the show. I've got a note from a friend, Chris Carwithen. So I'm sitting here watching the commentary for the Battle of the Five Armies Extended Edition, and I'm realizing it's finally time. Time to organize and schedule a 24-hour, 6-movie Hobbit Lord of the Rings Extended Edition marathon event. That's funny, Chris. That's an excellent idea, and I support you on that, my friend. You're doing such a badass job with marathoning the books. We've got to do the movies someday soon. It would at least be a little easier on your voice. Yes, Chris, it would be. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. That's fantastic. I support you all the way. And now, if we're ready to go, we're going to get together. I'm going to make sure that we're live. Are we live, guys? Are we starting a new chapter? Hi, Aristotle. Yep. So we're starting a new chapter, right? Of Herbs and Stewed Rabbit. Yes. Hello, Max. Max is actually texting me. That's awesome. Indeed. So, hello, Max. Hello, Emily. Good night, Emily. And there's Marfels, Sarah Von Hauer, everybody. Oh, yes. Hello, everyone. Thanks. Are we live? We're ready to go now?
Oh, yeah, we're still live.
Okay, good.
Never went away.
But we're going to take a second chapter recording of Herbs and Stewed Rabbit, all right?
Absolutely.
That's excellent. Very, very exciting. So, let me pick up the book. Oh, a bottle of water, please, Justin, while you're there. A bottle of water. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very nice. Lovely to see you. Floating water bottles that just appeared out of nowhere. Little floating water bottles that just came out of nowhere. Thank you, disembodied ghost hand that gave me this. Thank you. And now onward and forward. With
Dad, keep it.
We're not there yet. But it'll be great when we do get there. The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, being the second volume of the trilogy. We are now in Book 4, Chapter 4, of Herbs and Stewed Rabbit. I know Sean Astin probably would have enjoyed reading this chapter, but he's going to get the choices of Master Samwise, so I get to do the potatoes part. Right? Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. For the few hours of daylight that were left, they rested, shifting into the shade as the sun moved, until at last the shadow of the western rim of their dell grew long, and darkness filled all the hollow. Then they ate a little and drank sparingly. Gollum ate nothing, but he accepted water gladly. "Soon get more now," he said, licking his lips. "Good water runs down in streams to the great river. Nice water in the lands we are going to. Smeagol will get food there too, perhaps. He's very hungry, yes, Gollum." He set his two large flat hands on his shrunken belly, and a pale green light came into his eyes. The dusk was deep when at length they set out, creeping over the westward rim of the dell and fading like ghosts into the broken country on the borders of the road. The moon was now 3 nights from the full, but it did not climb over the mountains until nearly midnight, and the early night was very dark. A single red light burned high up in the towers of the Teeth, but otherwise no sign could be seen or heard of the sleepless watch on the Morannon. For many miles, the red eye seemed to stare at them as they fled, stumbling through a barren, stony country. They did not dare to take the road, but they kept it on their left, following its line as well as they could at a little distance. At last, when night was growing old and they were already weary, for they had taken only one short rest, the eye dwindled to a small fiery point and then vanished. They had turned the dark northern shoulder of the lower mountains and were heading southwards. With hearts strangely lightened, they now rested again, but not for long. They were not going quick enough for Gollum. By his reckoning, it was nearly 30 leagues from the Morannon to the crossroads above Osgiliath, and he hoped to cover that distance in 4 journeys. So soon they struggled on once more, until the dawn began to spread slowly in the wide grey solitude. They had then walked almost 8 leagues, and the hobbits could not have gone any further, even if they had dared. The growing light revealed to them a land already less barren and ruinous. The mountains loomed up ominously on their left, but near at hand they could see the southward road, now bearing away from the black roots of the hills and slanting westwards. Beyond it were slopes covered with sombre trees like dark clouds, but all about them lay a tumbled heathland, grown with ling and broom and cornel and other shrubs that they did not know. Here and there they saw knots of tall pine trees. The hearts of the hobbits rose again a little in spite of weariness. The air was fresh and fragrant, and it reminded them of the uplands of the North Farthing far away. It seemed good to be reprieved, to walk in a land that had only been for a few years under the dominion of the Dark Lord and was not yet fallen wholly into decay. But they did not forget their danger, nor the black gate that was still all too near, hidden though it was behind the gloomy heights. They looked about for a hiding place where they could shelter from evil eyes while the light lasted. The day passed uneasily. They lay deep in the heather and counted out the slow hours, in which there seemed little change. For there were still, under the shadows of the Ifeldwath, and the sun was veiled. Frodo slept at times, deeply and peacefully, either trusting Gollum or too tired to trouble about him. But Sam found it difficult to do more than doze, even when Gollum was plainly fast asleep, whiffling and twitching in his secret dreams. Hunger, perhaps, more than mistrust, kept him wakeful. He had begun to long for a good, homely meal, something hot out of the pot. As soon as the land faded into a formless grey under coming night, they started out again. In a little while Gollum led them down onto the southward road, and after that they went on more quickly, though the danger was greater. Their ears were strained for the sound of hoof or foot on the road ahead, or following them from behind. But the night passed, and they heard no sound of walker or rider. The road had been made in a long-lost time, and for perhaps 30 miles below the Morannon it had been newly repaired, but as it went south the wild encroached upon it. The handiwork of men of old could still be seen in its straight, sure flight and level course. Now and again it cut its way through hillside slopes, or leapt over a stream upon a wide, shapely arch of enduring masonry. But At last all signs of stonework faded, save for a broken pillar here and there, peering out of bushes at the side, or old paving stones still lurking amid weeds and moss. Heather and trees and bracken scrambled down and overhung the banks, or sprawled out over the surface. It dwindled at last to a country cart road little used, but it did not wind. It held on its own sure course and guided them by the swiftest way. So they passed into the northern marches of that land that men once called Ithilien, a fair country of climbing woods and swift falling streams. The night became fine under star and round moon, and it seemed to the hobbits that the fragrance of the air grew as they went forward. And from the blowing and muttering of Gollum, it seemed that he noticed it too, and did not relish it. At the first signs of day, they halted again. They had come to the end of a long cutting, deep and sheer-sided in the middle, by which the road clove its way through a stony ridge. Now they climbed up the westward bank and looked abroad. Day was opening in the sky, and they saw that the mountains were now much further off, receding eastward in a long curve that was lost in the distance. Before them, as they turned west, gentle slopes ran down into dim hazes far below. All about them were small woods of resinous trees, fir and cedar and cypress, and other kinds unknown in the Shire, with wide glades among them. And everywhere there was a wealth of sweet-smelling herbs and shrubs. The long journey from Rivendell had brought them far south of their own land, but not until now, in this more sheltered region, had the hobbits felt the change of clime. Here spring was already busy about them. Fronds pierced moss and mold, larches were green-fingered, small flowers were opening in the turf, birds were singing. Ithilien, the garden of Gondor, now desolate, kept still a disheveled dryad loveliness. South and west, it looked towards the warm lower vales of Anduin, shielded from the east by the Fell Duath, and yet not under the mountain shadow, protected from the north by the Imen Muil, open to the southern airs and the moist winds from the sea far away. Many great trees grew there, planted long ago, falling into untended age amid a riot of careless descendants. Groves and thickets there were of tamarisk and pungent terebinth, of olive and of bay. And there were junipers and myrtles and thymes that grew in bushes, or with their woody creeping stems mantled in deep tapestries of the hidden stones. Sages of many kinds, putting forth blue flowers, or red, or pale green, and marjorams and new-sprouting parsleys, and many herbs of form and scents beyond the garden lore of Sam. The grots and rocky walls were already starred with saxifrages and stone crops. Primaroles and anemones were awake in the filbert brakes, and asphodel and many lily flowers nodded their half-opened heads in the grass. Deep green grass beside the pools, where falling streams halted in cool hollows on their journey down to Anduin. The travelers turned their backs on the road and went downhill. As they walked, brushing their way through bush and herb, sweet odors rose about them. Gollum coughed and retched, but the hobbits breathed deep. Suddenly Sam laughed for heart's ease, not for jest. They followed a stream that went quickly down before them. Presently it brought them to a small clear lake in a shallow dell. It lay in the broken ruins of an ancient stone basin, the carven rim of which was almost wholly covered with mosses and rose brambles. Iris swords stood in ranks about it, and water lily leaves floated on its dark, gently rippling surface. But it was deep and fresh, and spilled ever softly out over a stony lip at the far end. Here they washed themselves and drank their fill at the infalling freshet. Then they sought for a resting place, and a hiding place, for this land, fair seeming still, was none the less now territory of the enemy. They had not come very far from the road, and yet, even in so short a space, they had seen scars of the old wars, and the newer wounds made by the orcs and other foul servants of the Dark Lord, a pit of uncovered filth and refuse, trees hewn down wantonly and left to die, with evil runes or the fell sign of the Eye cut in rude strokes on their bark. Sam, scrambling below the outfall of the lake, smelling and touching the unfamiliar plants and trees, forgetful for the moment of Mordor, was reminded suddenly of their ever-present peril. He stumbled on a ring, still scorched by fire, and in the midst of it he found a pile of charred and broken bones and skulls. The swift growth of the wild, with briar and eglantine and trailing clematis, was already drawing a veil over this place of dreadful feast and slaughter. But it was not ancient. He hurried back to his companions, but he said nothing. The bones were best left in peace, and not pawed and routed by Gollum. "Let's find a place to lie up in," he said. "Not lower down, higher up for me." A little way back, above the lake, they found a deep brown bed of last year's fern. Beyond it was a thicket of dark-leaved bay trees, climbing up a steep bank that was crowned with old cedars. Here they decided to rest and pass the day, which already promised to be bright and warm, a good day for strolling on their way along the groves and glades of Ithilien. But though orcs may shun the sunlight, there were too many places here where they could lie hid and watch, and other evil eyes were abroad. Sauron had many servants. Gollum, in any case, would not move under the yellow face. Soon it would look over the dark ridges of the Ephel Duath, and he would faint and cower in the light and heat. Sam had been giving earnest thought to food as they marched. Now that the despair of the impassable gate was behind him, he did not feel so inclined as his master to take no thought for their livelihood beyond the end of their errand, and anyway it seemed wiser to him to save the waybread of the elves for worse times ahead. 6 days or more had passed since he reckoned that they had had only a bare supply for 3 weeks. "If we reach the fire in that time, we'll be lucky at this rate," he thought, "and we might be wanting to get back. We might." Besides, at the end of a long night march, and after bathing and drinking, he felt even more hungry than usual. A supper or a breakfast by the fire in the old kitchen at Bagshot Row was what he really wanted. An idea struck him, and he turned to Gollum. Gollum had just begun to sneak off on his own, and he was crawling away on all fours through the fern. "Hi, Gollum," said Sam. "Where are you going? Hunting? Well, see here, old noser, you don't like our food, and I'd not be sorry for a change myself. Your new motto's always ready to help. Could you find anything fit for a hungry hobbit?" "Yes, perhaps yes," said Gollum. "Smeagol always helps, if they asks nicely." "Right," said Sam. "I does ask, and if that isn't nice enough, I begs." Gollum disappeared. He was away some time, and Frodo, after a few mouthfuls of lembas, settled deep into the brown fern and went to sleep. Sam looked at him. The early daylight was only just creeping down into the shadows under the trees, but he saw his master's face very clearly, and his hands, too, lying at rest on the ground beside him. He was reminded suddenly of Frodo as he had lain asleep in the house of Elrond after his deadly wound. Then, as he had kept watch, Sam had noticed that at times a light seemed to be shining faintly within, but now the light was even clearer and stronger. Frodo's face was peaceful. The marks of fear and care had left it, but it looked old and beautiful, as if the chiseling of the shaping years was now revealed in many fine lines that had before been hidden. though the identity of the face had not changed. Not that Sam Gamgee put it that way to himself. He shook his head, as if finding words useless, and murmured, "I love him. He's like that, and sometimes it shines through somehow. But I love him whether or no." Gollum returned quietly and peered over Sam's shoulder. Looking at Frodo, he shut his eyes and crawled away without a sound. Sam came to him a moment later and found him chewing something and muttering to himself. On the ground beside him lay 2 small rabbits, which he was beginning to eye greedily. "Smeagol always helps," he said. "He has brought rabbits, nice rabbits, but Master has gone to sleep, and perhaps Sam wants to sleep. Doesn't want rabbits now? Smeagol tries to help, but he can't catch things all in a minute." Sam, however, had no objection to rabbit at all, and said so. At least, not to cooked rabbit. All hobbits, of course, can cook, for they begin to learn the art before their letters, which many never reach. But Sam was a good cook, even by a hobbit reckoning, and he had done a good deal of the camp cooking on their travels, when there was a chance. He still hopefully carried some of his gear in his pack, a small tinder box, 2 small shallow pans, the smaller fitting into the larger, inside them a wooden spoon, a short 2-pronged fork, and some skewers were stowed, and hidden at the bottom of the pack, in a flat wooden box, a dwindling treasure, some salt. But he needed a fire and other things besides. He thought for a bit while he took out his knife, cleaned and wetted it, and began to dress the rabbits. He was not going to leave Frodo alone, asleep, even for a few minutes. "Now, Gollum," he said, "I've another job for you. Go and fill these pans with water and bring 'em back." "Smeagol will fetch water, yes," said Gollum. "But what does the hobbit want all that water for? He has drunk, he has washed." "Never you mind," said Sam. "If you can't guess, you'll soon find out. And the sooner you fetch the water, the sooner you'll learn. Don't you damage one of my pans, or I'll carve you into mincemeat." While Gollum was away, Sam took another look at Frodo. He was still sleeping quietly, but Sam was now struck most by the leanness of his face and hands. "Too thin and drawn he is," he muttered. "Not right for a hobbit. If I can get these conies cooked, I'm going to wake him up." Sam gathered a pile of the driest fern and scrambled up the bank, collecting a bundle of twigs and broken wood. The fallen branch of a cedar at the top gave him a good supply. He cut out some turves at the foot of the bank just outside the fern break, and made a shallow hole and laid his fuel in it. Being handy with flint and tinder, he soon had a small blaze going. It made little or no smoke, but gave off an aromatic scent. He was just stooping over his fire, shielding it and building it up with heavier wood, when Gollum returned, carrying the pans carefully and grumbling to himself. He set the pans down, and then suddenly saw what Sam was doing. He gave a thin, hissing shriek, and seemed to be both frightened and angry. "Ah, no," he cried. "No, silly hobbits! Foolish! Yes, foolish! They mustn't do it." "Mustn't do what?" asked Sam in surprise. "Not make the nasty red tongues," hissed Gollum. "Fire! Fire! It's dangerous, yes it is. It burns, it kills, and it will bring enemies. Yes, it will." "Well, I don't think so," said Sam. "I don't see why it should, if you don't put wet stuff on it and make a smother. But if it does, it does. I'm going to risk it anyhow. I'm going to stew these conies." "Stew the rabbits?" squealed Gollum in dismay. "Spoil beautiful meat Smeagol saved for you? Poor hungry Smeagol. What for? What for, silly hobbit? They are young, they are tender, they are nice. Eat them, eat them." He clawed at the nearest rabbit, already skinned and lying by the fire. "Now, now," said Sam, "each to his own fashion. Our bread chokes you, and raw coney chokes me. If you give me a coney, the coney's mine, see, to cook, if I have a mind, and I have. You needn't watch me. Go catch another and eat it as you fancy, somewhere private and out of my sight. Then you won't see the fire, and I shan't see you, and we'll both be the happier. I'll see the fire. Don't smoke, if that's any comfort for you. Gollum withdrew, grumbling, and crawled into the fern. Sam busied himself with his pans. What a hobbit needs with coney, he said to himself, is some herbs and roots, especially taters, not to mention bread. Herbs we can manage, seemingly. Gollum, he called softly, third time pays for all. I want some herbs. Gollum's head peered out of the fern, but his looks were neither helpful nor friendly. A few bay leaves, some thyme, and sage will do. Before the water boils, said Sam. No, said Gollum. Smeagol is not pleased, and Smeagol doesn't like smelly leaves. He doesn't eat grasses or roots, no, precious, not till he's starving or very sick. Poor Smeagol. Smeagol'll get into real, true hot water when this water boils if he don't do as he's asked, growled Sam. Sam'll put his head in it, yes, precious. And I'd make him look for turnips and carrots and taters, too, if it was the time of year. I bet there's all sorts of good things running wild in this country. I'd give a lot for half a dozen taters. Smeagol won't go, oh no, precious, not this time, hissed Gollum. He's frightened, and he's very tired, and this hobbit's not nice at all. Smeagol won't grub for roots and carrotses and taters. What's taters, precious, eh? What's taters? Potatoes, said Sam, the gaffer's delight, and rare good ballast for an empty belly. But if you won't find any, you won't find any, so you needn't look. But be good, Smeagol, and fetch me the herbs, and I'll think better of you. What's more, if you turn over a new leaf, and keep it turned, I'll cook you some taters one of these days. I will. Fried fish and chips, served by S. Gamgee. You couldn't say no to that. Yes, we could. Spoiling nice fish, scorching it. Give me fish now, and keep nasty chips. Oh, you're hopeless, said Sam. Go to sleep. In the end, he had to find what he wanted for himself, but he did not have to go far, and not out of sight of the place where his master lay, still sleeping. For a while Sam sat musing and tending the fire till the water boiled. The daylight grew, and the air became warm. The dew faded off turf and leaf. Soon the rabbits cut up lay simmering in their pans with the bunched herbs. Almost Sam fell asleep as the time went by. He let them stew for close on an hour, testing them now and again with his fork and tasting the broth. When he thought all was ready, he lifted the pans off the fire and crept along to Frodo. Frodo half opened his eyes as Sam stood over him, and then he wakened from his dreaming, another gentle, unrecoverable dream of peace. "Hello, Sam," he said. "Not resting? Is anything wrong? What is the time?" "About a couple of hours after daybreak," said Sam. "Nigh on 8:30 by shire clocks, maybe. But nothing's wrong, though it ain't quite what I'd call right. No stock, no onions, no taters. I've got a bit of stew for you and some broth, Mr. Frodo. Do you good. You'll have to sup it in your mug, or straight from the pan when it's cooled a bit. I haven't brought no bowls, nor nothing proper." Frodo yawned and stretched. "You should have been resting, Sam," he said, "and lighting a fire was dangerous in these parts. But I do feel hungry. Can I smell it from here? What have you stewed?" "A present from Smeagol," said Sam. "A brace of young conies, though I fancy Gollum's regretting them now. But there's naught to go with them but a few herbs." Sam and his master sat just within the fern brake and ate their stew from the pans, sharing the old fork and spoon. They allowed themselves half a piece of the elvish waybread each. It seemed a feast. "Phew, Gollum," Sam called and whistled softly. "Come on. Still time to change your mind. There's some left if you want to try stewed coney." There was no answer. "Oh, well, I suppose he's gone off to find something for himself. We'll finish it," said Sam. "And then you must take some sleep," said Frodo. "Don't you drop off while I'm nodding, Mr. Frodo. I don't feel too sure of him. There's a good deal of Stinker, the bad Gollum, if you understand me, in him still, and it's getting stronger again. Not but what I think he'd try to throttle me first now. We don't see eye to eye, and he's not pleased with Sam. Oh, no, precious, not pleased at all." They finished, and Sam went off to the stream to rinse his gear. As he stood up to return, he looked back up the slope. At that moment he saw the sun rise out of the reek, or haze, or dark shadow, or whatever it was, that lay over to the east, and it sent its golden beams down upon the trees and glades about him. Then he noticed a thin spiral of blue-gray smoke, plain to see as it caught the sunlight, rising from a thicket above him. With a shock he realized that this was the smoke from his little cooking fire, which he had neglected to put out. "That won't do. Never thought it would show like that," he muttered, and he started to hurry back. Suddenly he halted and listened. Had he heard a whistle or not? Or was it the call of some strange bird? If it was a whistle, it did not come from Frodo's direction. There it went again, from another place. Sam began to run as well as he could uphill. He found that a small brand, burning away to its outer end, had kindled some fern at the edge of the fire, and the fern blazing up had set the turves smoldering. Hastily he stamped out what was left of the fire, scattered the ashes, and laid the turves on the hole. Then he crept back to Frodo. "Did you hear a whistle, and what sounded like an answer?" he asked. "A few minutes back. I hope it was only a bird, but it didn't sound quite like that. More like somebody mimicking a bird call, I thought. But I'm afraid my bit of fire's been smoking. Now, if I've gone and brought trouble, I'll never forgive myself, nor won't have a chance, maybe." "Hush," whispered Frodo. "I thought I heard voices." The two hobbits trussed their small packs, put them on, ready for flight, and then crawled deeper into the fern. They were crouched and listening. There was no doubt of the voices. They were speaking low and furtively, but they were near and coming nearer. Then quite suddenly one spoke clearly close at hand. Here is where the smoke came from," it said. "'Twill be nigh at hand. In the fern, no doubt. We shall have it like a coney in a trap. Then we shall learn what kind of a thing it is." "Aye, and what it knows," said a second voice. At once 4 men came striding through the fern from different directions. Since flight and hiding were no longer possible, Frodo and Sam sprang to their feet, putting back to back and whipping out their small swords. If they were astonished at what they saw, their captors were even more astonished. 4 tall men stood there. 2 had spears in their hands, with broad, bright heads. 2 had great bows, almost of their own height, and great quivers of long, green-feathered arrows. All had swords at their sides, and were clad in green and brown of varied hues, as if to better walk unseen in the glades of Ithilien. Green gauntlets covered their hands, and their faces were hooded and masked with green, except for their eyes, which were very keen and bright. At once, Frodo thought of Boromir, for these men were like him in stature and bearing, and in their manner of speech. "We have not found what we sought," said one, "but what have we found?" "Not orcs," said another, releasing the hilt of his sword, which he had seized when he saw the glitter of sting in Frodo's hand. "Elves?" said a third, doubtfully. "Nay, not elves," said the fourth, the tallest, and, as it appeared, the chief among them. Elves do not walk in Ithilien these days, and elves are wondrous fair to look upon, or so 'tis said. Meaning we're not, I take you, said Sam. Thank you kindly. And when you've finished discussing us, perhaps you'll say who you are, and why you can't let two tired travelers rest? The tall green man laughed grimly. I am Faramir, captain of Gondor, he said, but there are no travelers in this land, only the servants of the Dark Tower or of the White. But we are neither, said Frodo, and travelers we are, whatever Captain Faramir may say. Then make haste to declare yourselves and your errand, said Faramir. We have a work to do, and this is no time or place for riddling or parleying. Come, where's the third of your company? The third? Yes, the skulking fellow that we saw with his nose in the pool down yonder. He had an ill-favored look. Some spying breed of orc, I guess, or creature of theirs, but he gave us the slip by some fox trick. I do not know where he is, said Frodo. He is only a chance companion met upon our road, and I am not answerable for him. If you come upon him, spare him, bring him, or send him to us. He is only a wretched gangrel creature. But I have him under my care for a while. But as for us, we are hobbits of the Shire, far to the north and west, beyond many rivers. Frodo, son of Drogo, is my name, and with me is Samwise, son of Hamfast, a worthy hobbit in my service. We have come by long ways, out of Rivendell, or Imladris, as some call it. Here, Faramir started and grew intent. 7 companions we had. One we lost at Moria, the others we left at Parth Galen above Rauros. 2 of my kin, a dwarf there was also, and an elf, and 2 men. They were Aragorn and Boromir, who said that he came out of Minas Tirith, a city in the south. Boromir! All the 4 men exclaimed. Boromir, son of the Lord Denethor, said Faramir, and a strange, stern look came into his face. You came with him? That is news indeed, if it be true. Know, little strangers, that Boromir, son of Denethor, was High Warden of the White Tower, and our Captain General. Sorely do we miss him. Who are you then, and what had you to do with him? Be swift, for the sun is climbing. Are the riddling words known to you that Boromir brought to Rivendell? Frodo replied. Seek for the sword that was broken. In Imladris it dwells. The words are known indeed, said Faramir in astonishment. It is some token of your truth, that you also know them. Aragorn, whom I named, is the bearer of the sword that was broken, said Frodo, and we are the halflings that the rhyme spoke of. That I see, said Faramir thoughtfully, or I see that it might be so. And what is Isildur's bane? That is hidden, answered Frodo. Doubtless it will be made clear in time. We must learn more of this, said Faramir, and know what brings you so far east under the shadow of yonder. He pointed and said no name. But not now. We have business in hand. You are in peril, and you would not have gone far by field or road this day. There will be hard handstrokes nigh at hand ere the day is full, then death, or swift flight back to Anduin. I will leave 2 guards on you, for your good and for mine. Wise man trusts not to chance meeting on the road in this land. If I return, I will speak with you more. Farewell, said Frodo, bowing low. Think what you will, I am a friend of all enemies, of the one enemy. We would go with you if we halfling folk could hope to serve you, such doughty men and strong as you seem, and if my errand permitted it. May the light shine on your swords. The halflings are courteous folk, whatever else they may be, said Faramir. Farewell. The hobbits sat down again, but they said nothing to one another of their thoughts and doubts. Close by, under the dappling shadow of the dark bay trees, 2 men remained on guard. They took off their masks now, and again to cool them as the day heat grew, and Frodo saw that they were goodly men, pale-skinned, dark of hair, with grey eyes and faces sad and proud. They spoke together in soft voices, at first using the common speech, but after the manner of older days, and then changing to another language of their own. To his amazement, as he listened, Frodo became aware that it was the elven tongue they spoke, or one but little different, and he looked at them with wonder, for he knew then that they must be Dunedain of the south, men of the line of the lords of Westernesse. After a while, he spoke to them, but they were slow and cautious in answering. They named themselves Mablung and Damrod, soldiers of Gondor, and they were rangers of Ithilien, for they were descended from folk who lived in Ithilien at one time, before it was overrun. From such men the Lord Denethor chose his forayers, who crossed the Anduin secretly, how or where they would not say, to harry the orcs and other enemies that roamed between the Ifelduath and the river. It is close on 10 leagues hence, to the east shore of Anduin, said Mablung, and we seldom come so far afield. But we have a new errand on this journey. We come to ambush the men of Harad. Curse them. Aye, curse the Southrons, said Damrod. 'Tis said that there were dealings of old between Gondor and the kingdoms of the Harad in the far south, though there was never friendship. In those days, our bounds were away south beyond the mouths of Anduin, and Umbar, the nearest of their realms, acknowledged our sway. But that is long since. 'Tis many lives of men now, since any passed to or fro between us. Now of late we have learned that the enemy has been among them, and they are gone over to him, or back to him. They were ever ready to his will, as have so many also in the east. I doubt not that the days of Gondor are numbered, and the walls of Minas Tirith are doomed. So great is his strength and malice. But still we will not sit idle and let him do all as he would, said Mablung. These cursed Southrons come now marching up the ancient roads to swell the hosts of the Dark Tower, yea, up the very roads that craft of Gondor made. And they go ever more heedlessly, we learn, thinking that the power of their new master is great enough, so that the mere shadow of his hills will protect them. We come to teach them another lesson. Great strength of them was reported to us some days ago, marching north. One of their regiments is due, by our reckoning, to pass by sometime ere noon, up on the road above, where it passes through the cloven way. The road may pass, but they shall not while Faramir is captain. He leads now in all perilous ventures, but his life is charmed, or fate spares him for some other end. Their talk died down into a listening silence. All seemed still and watchful. Sam, crouched by the edge of the fern brake, peered out. With his keen hobbit eyes he saw that many more men were about. He could see them stealing up the slopes, singly or in long files, keeping always to the shade of grove or thicket, or crawling, hardly visible, in their brown and green raiment, through grass and brake. All were hooded and masked, and had gauntlets on their hands, and were armed like Faramir and his companions. Before long, they had all passed and vanished. The sun rose till it neared the south. The shadows shrank. I wonder where that dratted Gollum is, thought Sam, as he crawled back into deeper shade. He stands a fair chance of being spitted for an orc, or of being roasted by the yellow-face, but I fancy he'll look after himself. He lay down beside Frodo and began to doze. He awoke, thinking that he had heard horns blowing. He sat up. It was now high noon. The guards stood silent. The guards stood alert and tense in the shadow of the trees. Suddenly the horns rang out, louder and beyond a mistake, from above, over the top of the slope. Sam thought that he heard cries and wild shouting also, but the sound was faint, as if it came out of some distant cave. Then presently the noise of fighting broke out near at hand, just above their hiding place. He could hear plainly the ringing grate of steel on steel, the clang of sword on iron cap, the dull beat of blade on shield. Men were yelling and screaming, and one clear, loud voice was calling, "Gondor! Gondor!" "It sounds like 100 blacksmiths all smithying together," said Sam to Frodo. "They're as near as I want them now." But the noise grew closer. "They're coming!" cried Damrod. "See! Some of the Southrons have broken from the trap and are flying from the road. There they go! Our men are after them, and the captain leading." Sam, eager to see more, went now and joined the guards. He scrambled a little way up onto one of the larger of the bay trees. For a moment he caught a glimpse of swarthy men in red running down the slope some way off, with green-clad warriors leaping after them, hewing them down as they fled. Arrows were thick in the air. Then suddenly, straight over the rim of their sheltering bank, a man fell, crashing through the slender trees, nearly on top of them. He came to rest in the fern a few feet away, face downward, green arrow feathers sticking from his neck below a golden collar. His scarlet robes were tattered. His corselet of overlapping brazen plates was rent and hewn. His black plaits of hair, braided with gold, were drenched with blood. His brown hand still clutched the hilt of a broken sword. It was Sam's first view of a battle of men against men, and he did not like it much. He was glad he could not see the dead face. He wondered what the man's name was, and where he came from, and if he was really evil of heart, or what lies or threats had led him on the long march from his home, and if he would not really rather have stayed there in peace, all in a flash of thought, which was quickly driven from his mind. For just as Mablung stepped towards the fallen body, there was a new noise, great crying and shouting. Amidst it, Sam heard a shrill bellowing or trumpeting, and then a great thudding and bumping, like huge rams dinning on the ground. Where, cried Damrod to his companion. "May the Valar turn him aside! Mumak, Mumak!" To his astonishment and terror and lasting delight, Sam saw a vast shape crash out of the trees and come careering down on the slope. Big as a house, much bigger than a house, it looked to him, a gray-clad moving hill. Fear and wonder, maybe, enlarged him in the hobbit's eyes, but the Mumak of Harad was indeed a beast of vast bulk, and the like of him does not now walk in Middle-earth. His kin that live still in latter days are but memories of his girth and majesty. On he came straight towards the watchers, and then swerved aside in the nick of time, passing only a few yards away, rocking the ground beneath their feet. His great legs were like trees, enormous, sail-like ears spread out, long snout upraised like a huge serpent about to strike, his small red eyes raging. His upturned, horn-like tusks were bound with bands of gold and dripped with blood. His trappings of scarlet and gold flapped about him in wild tatters. The ruins of what seemed a very war tower lay upon his heaving back, smashed in his furious passage through the woods. And high upon his neck still desperately clung a tiny figure, the body of a mighty warrior, a giant among the Swertings. On the great beast thundered, blundering in blind wrath through the pool and thicket. Arrows skipped and snapped harmlessly about the triple hide of his flanks. Men of both sides fled before him, but many he overtook and crushed to the ground. Soon he was lost to view, still trumpeting and stamping far away. What became of him, Sam never heard, whether he escaped to roam the wild for a time, until he perished far from his home, or was trapped in some deep pit, or whether he raged on until he plunged in the great river and was swallowed up. Sam drew a deep breath. "An Oliphaunt it was," he said. "So there are Oliphaunts, and I have seen one. What a life, but no one at home will ever believe me. Well, if that's over, I'll have a bit of sleep." "Sleep while you may," said Mablung, "but the captain will return if he is unhurt, and when he comes we shall depart swiftly. We shall be pursued as soon as news of our deed reaches the enemy, and that won't be long." Go quietly when you must," said Sam. "No need to disturb my sleep. Oh, I was walking all night." Mablung laughed. "I do not think that the captain will leave you here, Master Samwise," he said.
All right, who wants to go
"But you
first?
shall see.
He's
In
on
just
the
a
last
few
page.
moments' time,
Right.
ladies and gentlemen, we will return after a
Just
brief
put that in your
rest.
front pocket since you'll be
With
sitting down.
The next chapter,
I'll put the phone on do not
You can keep the
be right
jack.
back. Characters if you want. When you read Sam as text automatically, well, it automatically sounds like an Irish person who's got some attitude, you know.
And welcome back to our seemingly never-ending live reading of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I am not Clifford. I am Matt Levin, and I'm going to be reading to you for a little bit. Clifford has earned a little rest. He'll be back soon, though. Don't worry. So yeah, let's get back into this. We are in Book 4, Chapter 5. This is The Window on the West. It seemed to Sam that he had only just dozed for a few minutes when he awoke to find that it was late afternoon and Faramir had come back. He had brought many men with him. Indeed, all the survivors of the foray were now gathered on the slope nearby, 200 or 300 strong. They sat in a wide semicircle, between the arms of which Faramir was seated on the ground, while Frodo stood before him. It looked strangely like the trial of a prisoner. Sam crept out from the fern, but no one paid any attention to him, and he placed himself at the end of the rows of men, where he could see and hear all that was going on. He watched and listened intently, ready to dash to his master's aid if needed. He could see Faramir's face, which was now unmasked. It was stern and commanding, and a keen wit lay behind his searching glance. Doubt was in his gray eyes that gazed steadily at Frodo. Sam soon became aware that the captain was not satisfied with Frodo's account of himself at several points: what part he had to play in the company that set out at Rivendell, why he had left Boromir, and where he was now going. In particular, he returned often to Isildur's bane. Plainly he saw that Frodo was concealing from him some matter of great importance. But it was at the coming of the halfling that Isildur's bane should waken, or so one must read the words he insisted. If then you are the halfling that was named, doubtless you brought this thing, whatever it may be, to the council of which you speak, and there Boromir saw it. Do you deny it? Frodo made no answer. So, said Faramir, I wish then to learn from you more of it. For what concerns Boromir concerns me. An orc arrow slew Isildur, so far as old tales tell. But orc arrows are plenty, and the sight of one would not be taken as a sign of doom by Boromir or Gondor. Had you this thing in keeping? It is hidden, you say, but is not that because you choose to hide it? No, not because I choose, answered Frodo. It does not belong to me. It does not belong to any mortal, great or small, though if any could claim it, it would be Aragorn, son of Arathorn, whom I named, the leader of our company, from Moria to Rauos. Why so, and not Boromir, prince of the city that the sons of Elendil founded? Because Aragorn is descended in direct lineage, father to father, from Isildur Elendil's son himself, and the sword that he bears, Elendil's sword. A murmur of astonishment ran through all the ring of men. Some cried aloud, the sword of Elendil comes to Minas Tirith. Great tidings. But Faramir's face was unmoved. Maybe, he said, but so great a claim will need to be established, and clear proofs will be required, should this Aragorn ever come to Minas Tirith. He had not come, nor any of your company, when I set out 6 days ago. Boromir was satisfied of that claim, said Frodo. Indeed, if Boromir were here, he would answer all your questions. And since he was already at Rauros many days back, and intended then to go straight to your city, if you return, you may soon learn the answers there. My part in the company was known to him, as to all the others, for it was appointed to me by Elrond of Imladris himself, before the whole council. On that errand I came into this country, but it is not mine to reveal to any outside the company. Yet those who claim to oppose the enemy would do well not to hinder it. Frodo's tone was proud, whatever he felt, and Sam approved of it, but it did not appease Faramir. So, he said, you bid me mind my own affairs, and get me back home, and let you be. Boromir will tell all when he comes. When he comes, say you. Were you a friend of Boromir? Vividly before Frodo's mind came the memory of Boromir's assault upon him, and for a moment he hesitated. Faramir's eyes, watching him, grew harder. Boromir was a valiant member of our company, said Frodo at length. Yes, I was his friend, for my part. Faramir smiled grimly. Then you would grieve to learn that Boromir is dead? I would grieve indeed, said Frodo. Then, catching the look in Faramir's eyes, he faltered. Dead, he said. Do you mean that he is dead, and that you knew it? You have been trying to trap me in words, playing with me? Or are you now trying to snare me with a falsehood? I would not snare even an orc with a falsehood, said Faramir. How did he die? And how do you know of it, since you say that none of the company had reached the city when you left? As to the manner of his death, I had hoped that his friend and companion would tell me how it was. But he was alive and strong when we parted, and he lives still for all that I know, though surely there are many perils in the world. Many indeed, said Faramir, and treachery not the least. Sam had been getting more and more impatient and angry at this conversation. The last words were more than he could bear, and bursting into the middle of the ring, he strode up to his master's side. Begging your pardon, Mr. Frodo, he said, but this has gone on long enough. He's no right to talk to you so. After all you've gone through, as much for his good as all these great men as for anyone else. See here, Captain, he planted himself squarely in front of Faramir, his hands on his hips, and a look on his face as if he was addressing a young hobbit who had offered him what he called sauce when questioned about visits to the orchard. There was some murmuring, but also some grins on the faces of the men looking on. The sight of their captain sitting on the ground and eye to eye with a young hobbit, legs well apart, bristling with wrath, was one beyond their experience. See here, he said, what are you driving at? Let's come to the point before all the orcs of Mordor come down on us. If you think my master murdered this Boromir and then ran away, you've got no sense, but say it and have done, and then let us know what you mean to do about it. But it's a pity that folk as talk about fighting the enemy can't let others do their bit in their own way without interfering. He'd be mighty pleased if he could see you now. He'd think he got a new friend, he would. Patience, said Faramir, but without anger. Do not speak before your master, whose wit is greater than yours. And I do not need any to teach me of our peril. Even so, I spare a brief time in order to judge justly in a hard matter. Were I as hasty as you, I might have slain you long ago. For I am commanded to slay all whom I find in this land without the leave of the Lord of Gondor. But I do not slay man or beast needlessly, and not gladly even when it is needed. Neither do I talk in vain, so be comforted. Sit by your master and be silent. Sam sat down heavily with a red face. Faramir turned to Frodo again. You asked, how do I know that the son of Denethor is dead? Tidings of death have many wings. Night oft brings news to near kindred, 'tis said. Boromir was my brother. A shadow of sorrow passed over his face. Do you remember aught of special mark that the Lord Boromir bore with him among his gear? Frodo thought for a moment, fearing some further trap and wondering how this debate would turn in the end. He had hardly saved the ring from the proud grasp of Boromir, and how he would fare now among so many men, warlike and strong, he did not know. Yet he felt in his heart that Faramir, though he was much like his brother in looks, was a man less self-regarding, both sterner and wiser. I remember that Boromir bore a horn, he said at last. You remember well, and as one who has in truth seen him, said Faramir. Then maybe you can see it in your mind's eye, a great horn of the wild ox of the east, bound with silver and written with ancient characters. That horn the eldest son of our house has borne for many generations, and it is said that if it be blown at need anywhere within the bounds of Gondor, as the realm was of old, its voice will not pass unheeded. 5 days ere I set out on this venture, 11 days ago, at about this hour of the day, I heard the blowing of that horn. from the north wind it seemed, but dim, and as if it were but an echo in the mind. A boding of ill will, we thought it, my father and I, for no tidings had we heard of Boromir since he went away, and no watchers on our borders had seen him pass. And on the third night, after another and stranger thing befell me. I sat at night by the waters of Anduin, in the grey dark under the young pale moon, watching the ever-moving stream, and the sad reeds were rustling. So do we ever watch the shores nigh Osgiliath, which our enemies now partly hold, and issue from it to harry our lands. But that night all the world slept at the midnight hour. Then I saw, or it seemed that I saw, a boat floating on the water, glimmering grey, a small boat of a strange fashion with a high prow, and there was none to row or steer it. An awe fell on me, for a pale light was round it. But I rose and went down to the bank, and began to walk out into the stream, for I was drawn toward it. Then the boat turned towards me, and stayed its pace, and floated slowly by within my hand's reach. Yet I durst not handle it. It waded deep, as if it were heavily burdened, and it seemed to me, as it passed under my gaze, that it was almost filled with clear water, from which came the light, and lapped in the water a warrior lay asleep. A broken sword was on his knee. I saw many wounds on him. It was Boromir, my brother, dead. I knew his gear, his sword, his beloved face. One thing only I missed, his horn. One thing only I knew not, a fair belt, as it were of linked golden leaves, about his waist. Boromir, I cried, where is thy horn? Whither goest thou? O Boromir! But he was gone. The boat turned into the stream and passed glimmering on into the night. Dreamlike it was, and yet no dream, for there was no waking. And I do not doubt that he is dead and has passed down the river to the sea. Alas, said Frodo, that was indeed Boromir as I knew him, for the golden belt was given to him in Lothlorien by the Lady Galadriel. She it was that clothed us as you see us in elven grey. This brooch is of the same workmanship. He touched the green and silver leaf that fastened his cloak beneath his throat. Faramir looked closely at it. It is beautiful, he said. Yes, 'tis work of the same craft. So then you passed through the land of Lorien. Here's a big word. Lorelindorenian. Sorry, I apologize. It was named of old. But long now it has lain beyond the knowledge of men, he added softly, regarding Frodo with a new wonder in his eyes. Much that was strange about you I begin now to understand. Will you not tell me more? For it is a bitter thought that Boromir died within sight of the land of his home. No more can I say than I have said, answered Frodo, though your tales fill me with foreboding. A vision it was that you saw, I think, and no more, some shadow of evil fortune that has been or will be, unless indeed it is some lying trick of the enemy. I have seen the faces of fair warriors of old laid in deep sleep beneath the pools of the dead marshes, or seeming so by his foul arts. Nay, it was not so, said Faramir, for his works fill the heart with loathing, but my heart was filled with grief and pity. Yet how could such a thing have happened in truth? Asked Frodo, for no boat could have carried over the stony hills from Tol Barandir, and Boromir proposed to go home across the Entwash and the fields of Rohan. And yet how could any vessel ride the foam of the great falls and not founder in the boiling pools, though laden with water? I know not, said Faramir, but whence came the boat? From Lorien, said Frodo. In 3 such boats we rowed down Anduin to the falls. They were also of elven work. You passed through the hidden land, said Faramir, but it seems that you little understood its power. If men have dealings with the mistress of magic who dwells in the golden wood, then they may look for strange things to follow, for it is perilous for mortal men to walk out from the world of this sun, and few of old came thence unchanged, 'tis said. Boromir, oh Boromir, he cried. What did she say to you, the lady that dies not? What did she see? What woke in your heart then? Why went you ever to Lorelindorian, and I apologize once again, and came not by your own road upon the horses of Rohan, riding home in the morning? Then turning again to Frodo, he spoke in a quiet voice once more. To those questions, I guess that you could make some answer, Frodo, son of Drogo, but not here or now, maybe. But lest you still should think my tale a vision, I will tell you this. The horn of Boromir at least returned in truth and not in seeming. The horn came, but it was cloven in two, as it were by axe or sword. The shards came severally to shore. One was found among the reeds, where watchers of Gondor lay, northward below the infalls of the Entwash. The other was found spinning on the flood by one who had an errand on the water. Strange chances, but murder will out, 'tis said. And now the horn of the elder son lies in two pieces upon the lap of Denethor, sitting in his high chair, waiting for news. And you can tell me nothing of the cleaving of the horn? No, I did not know of it, said Frodo. But the day when you heard it blowing, if your reckoning is true, was the day when we parted, when I and my servant left the company. And now your tale fills me with dread. For if Boromir was then in peril and was slain, I must fear that all my companions perished too, and they were my kindred and my friends. Will you not put aside your doubt of me and let me go? I'm weary and full of grief and afraid. But I have a deed to do, or to attempt, before I too am slain, and the more need of haste, if we two halflings are all that remain of our fellowship. Go back, Faramir, valiant captain of Gondor, and defend your city while you may, and let me go where my doom takes me. For me there is no comfort in our speech together, said Faramir, but you surely draw from it more dread than need be, unless the people of Lorien themselves came to him, who arrayed Boromir as for a funeral, not orcs or servants of the Nameless. Some of your company, I guess, live still. But whatever befell on the north march, you, Frodo, I doubt no longer. If hard days have made me judge of men's words and faces, then I may make a guess at halflings, though, and now he smiled, there is something strange about you, Frodo, an elvish air, maybe, but more lies upon our words together than I thought at first. I should now take you back to Minas Tirith to answer there to Denethor, and my life will justly be forfeit if I now choose a course that proves ill for my city. So I will not decide in haste what is to be done. Yet we must move hence without more delay. He sprang to his feet and issued some orders. At once the men who were gathered round him broke up into small groups and went off this way and that, vanishing quickly into the shadows of the rocks and trees. Soon only Mablung and Damrod remained. Now you, Frodo and Samwise, will come with me and my guards, said Faramir. You cannot go along the road southward, if that was your purpose. It will be unsafe for some days, and always more closely watched after this affray than it has been yet. And you cannot, I think, go far today in any case, for you are weary, and so are we. We are going now to a secret place we have, somewhat less than 10 miles from here. The orcs and spies of the enemy have not found it yet, and if they did, we could hold it long, even against many. There we may lie up and rest for a while, and you with us. In the morning I will decide what is best for me to do and for you. Take a quick sip of my water. All right. There was nothing for Frodo to do but to fall in with this request or order. It seemed in any case a wise course for the moment, since this foray of the men of Gondor had made a journey in Ithilien more dangerous than ever. They set out at once, Mablung and Damrod a little ahead, and Faramir with Frodo and Sam behind. Skirting the hither side of the pool where the hobbits had bathed, they crossed the stream, climbed a long bank, and passed into green-shadowed woodlands that marched ever downwards and westwards. While they walked, as swiftly as the hobbits could go, they talked in hushed voices. I broke off our speech together, said Faramir, not only because time pressed, as Master Samwise had reminded me, but also because we were drawing near to matters that were better not debated openly before many men. It was for that reason that I turned rather to the matter of my brother and let be Isildur's bane. You were not wholly frank with me, Frodo. I told no lies, and of the truth all that I could, said Frodo. I do not blame you, said Faramir. You spoke with skill in a hard place, and wisely it seemed to me. But I learned or guessed more from you than your words said. You were not friendly with Boromir, or you did not part in friendship. You and Master Samwise, too, I guess, have some grievance. Now I loved him dearly, and would gladly avenge his death, yet I knew him well. Isildur's bane, I would hazard that Isildur's bane lay between you, and was a cause of contention in your company. Clearly it is a mighty heirloom of some sort, and such things do not breed peace among confederates, not if aught may be learned from ancient tales. Do I not hit near the mark? Near, said Frodo, but not in the gold. There was no contention in our company, though there was doubt which way we should take from Emin Muil. But be that as it may, ancient tales teach us also the peril of rash words concerning such things as heirlooms. Ah, then it is as I thought. Your trouble was with Boromir alone. He wished this thing brought to Minas Tirith. Alas, it is a crooked fate that seals your lips, who saw him last, and holds from me that which I long to know. What was in his heart and thought in his last hours? Whether he erred or no, of this I am sure, he died well, achieving some good thing. His face was more beautiful even than in life. But Frodo, I pressed you hard at first about Isildur's bane. Forgive me. It was unwise in such an hour and place. I had not had time for thought. We had had a hard fight, and there was more than enough to fill my mind. But even as I spoke with you, I drew nearer to the mark, and so deliberately shot wider. For you must know that much is still preserved of ancient lore among the rulers of the city that is not spread abroad. We of my house are not of the line of Elendil, though the blood of Numenor is in us, for we reckon back our line to Mardil, the good steward, who ruled in the king's stead when he went away to war. And that was King Earnor, last of the line of Anarion, and childless, and he never came back. And the stewards have governed the city since that day, though it was many generations of men ago. And this I remember of Boromir as a boy, when we together learned the tale of our sires and the history of our city, that always it displeased him that his father was not king. How many hundreds of years needs it to make a steward a king, if the king returns not, he asked. Few years, maybe, in other places of less royalty, my father answered. In Gondor, 10,000 years would not suffice. Alas, poor Boromir. Does that not tell you something of him? It does, said Frodo. Yet always he treated Aragorn with honor. I doubt it not, said Faramir. If he were satisfied of Aragorn's claim, as you say, he would greatly reverence him. But the pinch had not yet come. They had not yet reached Minas Tirith, or become rivals in her wars. But I stray. We in the house of Denethor know much ancient lore by long tradition, and there are moreover in our treasuries many things preserved, books and tablets writ on withered parchments, yea, and on stone, and on leaves of silver and of gold, in divers characters. Some none can now read, and for the rest, few ever unlock them. I can read a little in them, for I have had teaching. It was these records that brought the Grey Pilgrim to us. I first saw him when I was a child, and he has been twice or thrice since then. The Grey Pilgrim, said Frodo. Had he a name? Mithrandir, we called him in elf fashion, said Faramir, and he was content. Many are my names in many countries, he said. Mithrandir among the elves, Tharkun in the dwarves, Olorin I was in my youth in the west that is forgotten, in the south, Incanus, in the north, Gandalf, to the east I go not. Gandalf, said Frodo. I thought it was he. Gandalf the Grey, dearest of counselors, leader of our company. He was lost in Moria. Mithrandir was lost, said Faramir. An evil fate seems to have pursued your fellowship. It is hard indeed to believe that one of so great wisdom and of power, for many wonderful things did he among us, could perish, and so much lore he be taken from the world. Are you sure of this, and that he did not just leave you and depart where he would? Alas, yes, said Frodo. I saw him fall into the abyss. I see that there is some great tale of dread in this, said Faramir, which perhaps you may tell me in the evening time. This Mithrandir was, I now guess, more than a lore master, a great mover of the deeds that are done in our time. Had he been among us to consult concerning the harsh words of our dream, he could have made them clear to us without need of messenger. Yet, maybe, he would not have done so, and the journey of Boromir was doomed. Mithrandir never spoke to us of what was to be, nor did he reveal his purposes. He got leave of Denethor, how I do not know, to look at the secrets of our treasury, and I learned a little of him when he would teach, and that was seldom. Ever he would search and would question us, above all else concerning the great battle that was fought upon Dagorlad in the beginning of Gondor, when he whom we do not name was overthrown. And he was eager for stories of Isildur, though of him we had less to tell, for nothing certain was ever known among us of his end. Now Faramir's voice sank to a whisper. But this much I learned, or guessed, and I have kept it ever secret in my heart since, that Isildur took somewhat from the hand of the unnamed, ere he went away from Gondor, never to be seen among mortal men again. Here, I thought, was the answer to Mithrandir's questioning, but it seemed then a matter that concerned only the seeker after ancient learning. Nor when the riddling words of our dream were debated among us did I think of Isildur's bane as being this same thing, for Isildur was ambushed and slain by orc arrows, according to the only legend that we knew, and Mithrandir had never told me more. What in truth this thing is I cannot yet guess, but some heirloom of power and peril it must be, a fell weapon perchance, devised by the Dark Lord. If it were a thing that gave advantage in battle, I can well believe that Boromir, the proud and fearless, often rash, ever anxious for the victory of Minas Tirith and his own glory within, might desire such a thing and be allured by it. Alas, that ever he went on that errand. I should have been chosen by my father and the elders, but he put himself forward as being the older and the hardier, both true, and he would not be stayed. But fear no more, I would not take this thing, if I laid by the highway, not were Minas Tirith falling in ruin, and I alone could save her, so, using the weapon of the Dark Lord for her good and my glory. No, I do not wish for such triumphs, Frodo, son of Drogo. Neither did the council, said Frodo, nor do I. I would have nothing to do with such matters. For myself, said Faramir, I would see the white tree and flower again in the courts of the kings, and the silver crown return, and Minas Tirith in peace, Minas Anor again as of old, full of light, high and fair, beautiful as a queen among other queens, not a mistress of many slaves, nay, not even a kind mistress of willing slaves. War must be, while we defend our lives against a destroyer who would devour all, but I do not love the bright sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love only that which they defend, the city of the men of Numenor, and I would have her loved for her memory, her ancientry, her beauty, and her present wisdom, not feared, save as men may fear the dignity of a man old and wise. So fear me not. I do not ask you to tell me more. I do not even ask you to tell me whether I now speak nearer the mark. But if you will trust me, it may be that I can advise you in your present quest, whatever that be. Yes, and even aid you. Frodo made no answer. Almost he yielded to the desire for help and counsel, to tell this grave young man, whose words seemed so wise and fair, all that was in his mind. But something held him back. His heart was heavy with fear and sorrow. If he and Sam were indeed, as seemed likely, all that was now left of the 9 walkers, then he was in sole command of the secret of their errand. Better mistrust undeserved than rash words. And the memory of Boromir, of the dreadful change that the lore of the ring had worked in him, was very present to his mind. When he looked at Faramir and listened to his voice, unlikely they were, and yet also much akin. Another quick sip of water.
If you want to take a break, let me know.
Okay, yeah, how are we doing here? Okay, we're nowhere near the end of the chapter. They walked on in silence for a while, passing like gray and green shadows under the old trees, their feet making no sound. Above them many birds sang, and the sun glistened on the polished roof of dark leaves in the evergreen woods of Ithilien. Sam had taken no part in the conversation, though he had listened, and at the same time he had attended with his keen hobbit ears to all the soft woodland noises about them. One thing he had noted, that in all the talk the name of Gollum had not once come up. He was glad, though he felt that it was too much to hope that they would never hear it again. He soon became aware also that though they walked alone, there were many men close at hand. Not only Damrod and Mablung flitting in and out of the shadows ahead, but others on either side, all making their swift secret way to some appointed place. Once, looking suddenly back, as if some prickle of the skin told him that he was watched from behind, he thought he caught a brief glimpse of a small dark shape slipping behind a tree trunk. He opened his mouth to speak and shut it again. I'm not sure of it, he said to himself. And why should I remind them of the old villain, if they choose to forget him? I wish I could. So they passed on, until the woodlands grew thinner and the land began to fall more steeply. Then they turned aside again, to the right, and came quickly to a small river in a narrow gorge. It was the same stream that trickled far above out of the round pool, now grown to a swift torrent, leaping down over many stones in a deep cloven bed, overhung with ilex and dark boxwoods. Looking west, they could see, below them in a haze of light, lowlands and broad meads, and glinting far off in the western sun the wide waters of the Anduin. Here, alas, I must do you a discourtesy, said Faramir. I hope you will pardon it to one who has so far made his orders give way to courtesy as to not slay you or to bind you, but is a command that no stranger, not even one of Rohan that fights with us, shall see the path we now go with open eyes. I must blindfold you. As you will, said Frodo. Even the elves do likewise at need, and blindfolded we crossed the borders of fair Lothlorien. Gimli the dwarf took it ill, but the hobbits endured it. It is to no place so fair that I shall lead you, said Faramir, but I am glad that you will take this willingly and not by force. He called softly, and immediately Mablung and Damrod stepped out of the trees and came back to him. Blindfold these guests, said Faramir, securely, but not so as to discomfort them. Do not tie their hands. They will give their words not to try and see. I could trust them to shut their eyes of their own accord, but eyes will blink if the feet stumble. Lead them so that they do not falter. With green scarves the two guards now bound up the hobbits' eyes and drew their hoods down almost to their mouths. Then quickly they took each one by the hand and went on their way. All that Frodo and Sam knew of this last mile of the road they learned from guessing in the dark. After a little they found that they were on a path descending steeply. Soon it grew so narrow that they went in single file, brushing a stony wall on either side. Their guards steered them from behind with hands laid firmly on their shoulders. Now and again they came to rough places and were lifted from their feet for a while and then set down again. Always the noise of the running water was on their right hand, and it grew nearer and louder. At length they were halted. Quickly Mablung and Damrod turned them about several times, and they lost all sense of direction. They climbed upwards a little. It seemed cold, and the noise of the stream had become faint. Then they were picked up and carried down many steps, and round a corner. Suddenly they heard the water again, loud now, rushing and splashing. All round them it seemed, and they felt a fine rain on their hands and cheeks. At last they were set on their feet once more. For a moment they stood so, half fearful, blindfolded, not knowing where they were, and no one spoke. Then came the voice of Faramir close behind. "Let them see," he said. The scarves were removed and their hoods drawn back, and they blinked and gasped. They stood on a wet floor of polished stone, the doorstep, as it were, of a rough-hewn gate of rock opening dark behind them. But in front, a thin veil of water was hung, so near that Frodo could have put an outstretched arm into it. It faced westward. The level shafts of the setting sun behind beat upon it, and the red light was broken into many flickering beams of ever-changing color. It was as if they stood at the window of some elven tower, curtained with threaded jewels of silver and gold and ruby, sapphire and amethyst, all kindled with an unconsuming fire. "At least by good chance we came at the right hour to reward you for your patience," said Faramir. "This is the window of the sunset. Henneth Annun, fairest of all the falls of Ithilien, land of many fountains. Few strangers have ever seen it, but there is no kingly hall behind to match it. Enter now and see." Even as he spoke, the sun sank, and the fire faded in the flowing water. They turned and passed under the low, forbidding arch. At once they found themselves in a rock chamber, wide and rough, with an uneven, stooping roof. A few torches were kindled and cast a dim light on the glistening walls. Many men were already there. Others were still coming in by twos and threes through a dark, narrow door on one side. As their eyes grew accustomed to the gloom, the hobbits saw that the cave was larger than they had guessed, and was filled with great store of arms and victuals. "Well, here is our refuge," said Faramir. "Not a place of great ease, but here you may pass the night in peace. It is dry at least, and there is food, though no fire, At one time the water flowed down through this cave and out of the arch, but its course was changed further up the gorge by workmen of old, and the stream sent down in a fall of doubled height over the rocks far above. All the ways into this grot were then sealed against the entry of water or aught else, all save one. There are now but 2 ways out. That passage yonder by which you entered blindfolded, and through the window curtain into a deep bowl filled with knives of stone. Now rest a while, until the evening meal is set. The hobbits were taken to a corner and given a low bed to lie on if they wished. Meanwhile, men busied themselves about the cave, quietly in orderly quickness. Light tabbies were taken from the walls and set up on trestles and laden with gear. This was plain and unadorned for the most part, but all well and fairly made. Round platters, bowls and dishes of glazed brown clay or turned boxwood, smooth and clean. Here and there was a cup or basin of polished bronze, and a goblet of plain silver was set by the captain's seat in the middle of the inmost table. Faramir went about among the men, questioning each as he came in a soft voice. Some came back from the pursuit of the Southrons. Others, left behind as scouts near the road, came in latest. All the Southrons had been accounted for, save only the great Momak. What happened to him, none would say. Of the enemy no movement could be seen. Not even an orc spy was abroad. "You saw and heard nothing, Anborn?" Faramir asked of the latest comer. "Well, no, lord," said the man, "no orc at least. But I saw, or thought I saw, something a little strange. It was getting deep dusk, when the eyes made things greater than they should be. So perhaps it may have been no more than a squirrel." Sam pricked up his ears at this. "Yet if so, it was a black squirrel, and I saw no tail. 'Twas like a shadow on the ground, and it whisked behind a tree trunk when I saw nigh, and went up aloft and as swift as any squirrel could. You will not have us slay wild beasts for no purpose, and it seemed no more, so I tried no arrow. It was too dark for sure shooting anyway, and the creature was gone into the gloom of the leaves in a twinkling. But I stayed for a while, for it seemed strange, and then I hastened back. I thought I heard the thing hiss at me from high above as I turned away. A large squirrel, maybe. Perhaps under the shadow of the unnamed some of the beasts of Mirkwood are wandering hither to our woods. They have black squirrels there, 'tis said." "Perhaps," said Faramir, "but that would be an ill omen, if it were so. We do not want the escapes of Mirkwood and Ithilien." Sam fancied that he gave a swift glance toward the hobbits as he spoke, but Sam said nothing. For a while he and Frodo lay back and watched the torchlight, and the men moving to and fro, speaking in hushed voices. Then suddenly Frodo fell asleep. Sam struggling with himself, arguing this way and that. He may be all right, he thought, and then he may not. Fair speech may hide a foul heart, he yawned. I could sleep for a week, and I'd be better for it. And what can I do if I do keep awake, me all alone, and all these great men about? Nothing, Sam Ganji. But you've got to keep awake all the same, and somehow he managed it. The light faded from the cave door, and the gray veil of falling water grew dim and was lost in gathering shadow. Always the sound of the water went on, never changing its note, morning or evening or night. It murmured and whispered of sleep. Sam stuck his knuckles in his eyes. Now more torches were being lit. A cask of wine was broached. Storage barrels were being opened. Men were fetching water from the fall. Some were laving their hands in basins. A wide copper bowl and a white cloth were brought to Faramir, and he washed. "Wake our guests," he said, "and take them water. It is time to eat." Frodo sat up and yawned and stretched. Sam, not used to being waited on, looked with some surprise at the tall man who bowed, holding a basin of water before him. "Put it on the ground, master, if you please," he said. "Easier for me and you." Then, to the astonishment and amusement of the men, he plunged his head into the cold water and splashed his neck and ears. "Is it the custom in your land to wash the head before supper?" said the man who waited on the hobbits. "No, before breakfast," said Sam. "But if you're short of sleep, cold water on the neck's like rain on a wilted lettuce. There, now I can keep awake long enough to eat a bit." And they were led, then, to seats beside Faramir, barrels covered with pelts and high enough above the benches of the men for their convenience. Before they ate, Faramir and all his men turned and faced west in a moment of silence. Faramir signed to Frodo and Sam that they should do likewise. "So we always do," he said as they sat down. "We look towards Numenor that was, and beyond to Elvenhome as that is, and to that which is beyond Elvenhome, and will ever be. Have you no such custom at meat?" "No," said Frodo, feeling strangely rustic and untutored. "But if we are guests, we bow to our host, and after we have eaten, we rise and thank him." "That we do also," said Faramir. How are we doing here? Maybe you can take over for a bit.
Sure.
I will now pass you over to the capable, dulcet vocal stylings of Mr. James Robbins.
Oh, why? You're too kind. Thank you.
I think we're at the first pause or the
where?
second. Yes,
Show
let's
me if
see.
you would. Let's see.
Oh, we're right here.
Oh, okay. That makes great sense. Hello, I am James Robbins. Happy 12th Night Eve. And I'm going to be reading from, is it book 4?
Book 4.
Book 4 of Lord of the Rings, a little discovery of ours. After so long journeying and camping and days spent in the lonely wild, the evening meal seemed a feast to the hobbits. To drink pale yellow wine, cool and fragrant, and eat bread and butter and salted meats and dried fruits and good red cheese with clean hands and clean knives and plates. Neither Frodo nor Sam refused anything that was offered, nor a second, nor even a third helping. The wine coursed in their veins and tired limbs, and they felt glad and easy of heart, as they had not done since they left the land of Lorien. When all was done, Faramir led them to a recess at the back of the cave, partly screened by curtains, and a chair and 2 stools were brought there. A little earthenware lamp burned in a niche. "You may soon desire sleep," he said, "and especially good Samwise." Oh yes, same chapter. "You may soon desire sleep," he said, "and especially good Samwise, who could not close his eyes before he ate, whether for fear of blunting the edge of a noble hunger, or for fear of me, I do not know. But it is not good to sleep too soon after meat, and that following a fast. Let us talk a while. On your journey from Rivendell, there must have been many things to tell, and you would perhaps wish to learn something of us and the lands where you are now. Tell me of Boromir, my brother, and of old Mithendir, and of the fair people of Lothlorien." Frodo no longer felt sleepy, and he was willing to talk. But though the food and wine had put him at ease, he had not lost all his caution. Sam was beaming and humming to himself, but when Frodo spoke, he was at first content to listen, only occasionally venturing to make an exclamation of agreement. Frodo told many tales, yet always he steered the matter away from the quest of the company and from the ring, enlarging rather on the valiant part of Boromir had played in all their adventures, with the wolves of the wild, in the snows under Cathaeris, in the mines of Moria where Gandalf fell. Faramir was most moved by the story of the fight on the bridge. "It must have irked Boromir to run from the orcs," he said, "or even from the fell thing you name, the Balrog, even though he was the last to leave." "He was the last," said Frodo. "But Aragorn was forced to lead us. He alone knew the way after Gandalf's fall. But had there not been us lesser folk to care for, I do not think that either he or Boromir would have fled. Maybe. But it would have been better had Boromir fallen there with Mithendir," said Faramir, "and not gone to the fate that awaited all the falls of the Rhoyrs. Maybe. But tell me now of your own fortunes," said Frodo, turning the matter once again to him. "For I would learn more of the Minas Tirith and Ogozith and Minas Tirith, the long-enduring. What hope have you for the city in your long war?" "What hope have we?" said Faramir. "It is long since we had any hope. The sword of Elendil, if it returns indeed, may rekindle it, but I do not think that it will do more than put off the evil day, unless other help unlooked for comes from elves or men. For the enemy increases and we decrease. We are a falling people, a springless autumn. The men of Númenor were settled far and wide on the shores and the seaward regions of the great lands, but for their part they fell into evils and follies. Many became enamored of the darkness and the black arts. Some were even given over wholly to idleness and ease, and some fought amongst themselves until they were conquered in their weakness by the wild men. It is not said that the evil arts were ever practiced in Gondor, or that the Nameless One was ever brought in honor there. And the old wisdom and beauty brought out of the west remained long into the realm of the sons of Elendil the Fair, and they linger there still. Yet even so it was Gondor that brought about its own decay, falling by degrees about into dotage, and thinking that the enemy was asleep, who was only banished, not destroyed. Death was ever present, because the Númenorians still, as they had in their old kingdom, and so lost it, hungered after endless life unchanging. Kings made tombs more splendid than houses of the living, and counted old names on the rolls of their descent dearer than names of sons. Childless lords sat in aged halls, musing on heraldry. In secret chambers withered men compounded strong elixirs, or in high cold towers asked questions of the stars. And the last king of the line of Andarian no heir. But the stewards were wiser and more fortunate. Wiser, for they recruited the strength of our people from the sturdy folk of the seacoast, and from the hardy mountaineers of arid Nemiris. And they made a truce with the proud peoples of the north, who had assailed us, men of fierce honor, but our kin from far off, unlike the wild Easterlings or the cruel Hardirim. So it came to pass in the days of Sirion, the 12th steward, and my father is the 6th of the 20th, that they rode to our aid, and at the great field of Celebrant they destroyed our enemies that had seized our northern provinces. These were the Rohirrim, as they named them, the master of horses, and we ceded to them the fields of Calanthorin, I believe, that are since called Rohan, for that province had long been sparsely peopled, and they became our allies and have ever proved true to us, aiding us in need and guarding our northern marches at the gap of Rohan. Of our lore and manners they have learned what they would, and their lords speak of our speech at need. Yet for the most part they hold by their ways of their own fathers unto their own memories, and they speak amongst themselves their own north tongue. And we love them, tall men and fair women, valiant both alike, golden-haired, bright-eyed, and strong. They remain us with the youth of men, as they were in their elder days. Indeed, it is said of our lore masters that they have from this old of affinity, that they are come from those 3 houses of men that were the Númenorians in the beginning, not from Hador, the golden-haired, the elf friend, maybe. Yet from such his sons and the people were not over sea into west, refusing the call. For so we reckon men of our lore, calling them the high, or men of the west, which are Númenorians, and the middle peoples, men of the twilight. Such of us are Rohan, and the king that dwell, still far in the north, and the wild, the men of darkness. Yet now, if the Rohirrim are grown in some ways more like us, enhanced in arts and gentleness, we too have become more like them, and can scarce claim any longer the title high. We are become middlemen of the twilight, with the memory of other things. As with the Rohirrim do, we now love war and valor and the good things in themselves, both as sport and an end. And though we still hold that a warrior should have more skills and knowledge than only craft of weapons and slaying, we esteem a warrior, nonetheless, above men of other crafts. Such is the need of our days. So even it was my brother Boromir, a man of prowess, and for that he was accounted the best man in Gondor. And many valiant indeed he was. No heir of Minas Tirith has for long years been so hearty in toil, so onward into battle, or blown a mightier note of the great horn. Faramir sighed and fell silent for a while. "You don't say much of the elves, sir," said Sam, suddenly plucking up courage. He had noted that Faramir seemed to refer to the elves with reverence, and this even more than his courtesy and the food and wine had won Sam's respect and quieted his suspicions. "No, indeed, Master Samwise," said Faramir, "for I am not learned in elven lore. But there you touch upon another point in which we might have changed, declining from Numenor to Middle-earth. For as you may know, if Mithendir was your companion, and if you have spoken with Elrond the Edain and the fathers of the Númenóreans fought beside the elves in the first wars, and were rewarded by the gift of the kingdom in the midst of the sea, within sight of Elvenhome. But in Middle-earth men and elves became estranged in the days of darkness, by the arts of the enemy, and by slow changes of time, in which each kind walked further down their sundered roads. Men now fear and misdoubt the elves, and yet little know of them. And we of Gondor grow like other men, like the men of Rohan, for even they, who are foes of the Dark Lord, shun the elves and speak of the Golden Wood with dread. Yet there are among us still some who have dealings with the elves, and they may, and ever anon, one will go in secret to Lorien, seldom to return, nor I. Not I. For I deem it perilous now for mortal man to wilfully to seek out the elder people. Yet I envy you that have spoken with the White Lady." "The Lady of Lorien, Galadriel," cried Sam. "Oh, you should see her. Indeed you should, sir. I'm only a hobbit, and gardening's my job at home. And if you understand me, I'm not so much good at poetry. Not at making it, not a bit of comic rhyme perhaps now and then, you know, but not really poetry. So I can't tell you what I mean. It ought to be sung. You ought to have Strider, Aragorn, that is, or old Mr. Bulbo for that. Oh, but I wish I could make a song about her. Beautiful she is, lovely. Sometimes like a great tree in flower, sometimes like a wild daffodil, small and slender-like, hard as diamonds, soft as moonlight. Warm as sunshine, cold as frost in the stars. Proud and far off as a snow mountain, and merry as any lass as ever I saw with daisies in her hair in springtime." But that's a lot of nonsense, and I all wide of the mark. "Then she must be lovely indeed," said Faramir. "Perilously fair." "Oh, I don't know about perilous," said Sam. "It strikes me that folk that takes their peril with them into Lorien and finds there because they've brought it. But perhaps you could call her perilous, because she's so strong in herself. You could dash yourself to pieces on her, like a ship on rock, and drown yourself like a hobbit in a river. But neither a river nor rock would be to blame. Now, He stopped and went red in the face. "Yes? Now, Boromir, you would say," said Faramir. "What would you say? He took his peril with him?" "Yes, sir, begging your pardon, and a fine man your brother was, if I may say so. But I've been warm on the scent all along. Now I watched Boromir and listened to him from Rivendell all down the road, talking with my master, as you'll understand, and not meaning any harm to Boromir, as it's my opinion that in Lorien he first saw clearly what I guessed sooner, what he wanted. From the moment he saw it, he wanted the enemy's ring." "Sam!" cried Frodo aghast. He had been fallen asleep into his own thoughts for a while, and then it came out suddenly and too late. "Save me!" said Sam, turning white and flushing scarlet. "There I go again. Whenever you open your big mouth and you put it near the gaffer, it is to say to me, 'Right enough, oh dear, oh dear.' Now look here, sir." He turned facing up to Faramir, all the courage he could muster. "Don't you go taking advantage of my master, because a servant's no better than a fool. You've spoken very handsome all along, putting me off my guard, talking of elves and all. But handsome is as handsome does, we say. Now a chance to show your quality." "So it seems," said Faramir, slowly and very softly, with a strange smile. That the answer is the answer to all riddles. The one ring that was thought to have perished from the world. And Boromir tried to take it by force? And you escaped? And ran all the way to me? And here in all the world I have you, 2 halflings, and a host of men at my call, and the ring of rings, a pretty stroke of fortune, a chance for Faramir, captain of Gondor, to show his quality. Ha!" He stood up, very tall and stern, his eyes grey and glinting. Frodo and Sam sprang from their stools and set themselves side by side with their backs to the wall, fumbling with their sword hilts. There was silence. All the men in the cave stopped talking and looked towards them in wonder. But Faramir sat down again in his chair and began to laugh quietly, and then suddenly became grave again. "Alas for Boromir. It was too sore a trial," he said. "How you have increased my sorrow, you 2 strange wanderers from a far country, bearing the peril of men. But you are less judges of men than I of halflings. We are truth speakers, we men of Gondor. We boast seldom, and then perform or die in the attempt. Not if I had found it on the highway would I take it, I said. Even if I were a man, such a man as to desire a thing, and even if I knew not clearly what this thing was I spoke, still I should take those words as a vow and be held by them. But I am not such a man. Or am I wise enough to know that there are some perils from which a man must flee? Sit at peace and be comforted, Samwise. If you seem to have stumbled, think it was fated to be so. Your heart is shrewd as well as faithful, and saw clearer than your eyes. For strange though it may seem, it was safe to declare this to me. It may even help the master that you love. It shall turn to his good if it is in my power. So be comforted. But do not even name this thing aloud. Once is enough. The hobbits came back to their seats and sat very quiet. Men turned back to their drink and their talk, perceiving that the captain had some jest or other with the little guest, and that was over. Well, now, Frodo, now at last we understand one another, said Faramir. If you took this thing on yourself, unwilling as others asking, then you have pity and honor from me. And I marvel at you to keep it hidden, not to use it. You are a new people and a new world to me. Are all your kin like this? Your land must be a realm of peace and content, and there must be gardeners, must be in high of honor. Not all is well there, said Frodo, but certainly gardeners are honored. But folk must grow weary there, even in their gardens, as do all things under the sun and the world. Are you far from home and wayward? No more tonight. Sleep, both of you, in peace, if you can. Fear not, I do not wish to see it, or touch it, or no more of it can. Fear not, I do not wish to see it, lest peril perchance waylay me, and I fall lower than the tusk than Frodo, son of Drogo. Go now to rest. But first tell me only, if you will, whither you wish to go, and what to do, for I must watch and wait and think. Time passes. In the morning we must go swiftly, or the way is appointed to us. Frodo had himself trembling at the first shock of fear past. Now a great weariness came over him like a cloud. He could disassemble and resist no longer. I was going to find a way into Mordor, he said faintly. I was going to go to Gorgorth. I must find the Mountain of Fire and cast the thing into the Gulf of Doom. Gandalf said so. I do not think I shall ever get there. Faramir stared at him for a moment in grave astonishment. Then suddenly he caught him as he swayed, and lifting him gently, carried him to the bed and laid him there, and covered him warmly. At once he fell into a deep, deep sleep. Another bed was beside him for his servant. Sam hesitated for a moment, then bowing very low, "Good night, Captain, my lord," he said. "You took a chance, sir." "Did I so?" said Faramir. "Yes, sir. You showed your quality, the very highest." Faramir smiled. "A pert servant, Master Samwise. But nay, the praise of the praiseworthy is above all rewards. Yet there was naught in this to praise me. I had no lure or desire to do other than I have done." "Ah, well, sir," said Sam, "you said my master had an elvish air, and that was good and true. But I can say this, you have an air too, sir, that reminds me of, well, Gandalf of Wizards." "Maybe," said Faramir. "Maybe you discern from far away the air of Numenor. Good night." And that's the end of that chapter. We're on to chapter 6. Are we supposed to keep going? I'm going to keep going, and then until these lungs give out. Chapter 6, The Forbidden Fool. Frodo woke next to Faramir, bending over him. For a second old fear seized him, and he sat up and shrank away. "There is nothing to fear," said Faramir. "Is it morning already?" said Frodo, yawning. "Not yet, but night is dawning to an end, and the full moon is setting. Will you come and see it? Also, there is a matter on which I desire your counsel. I am sorry to rouse your sleep, but will you come?" "I will," said Frodo, rising and shivering a little as he left the warm blankets and pelts. It seemed cold in the fireless cave. The noise of the water was loud in the stillness. He put on his cloak and followed Faramir. Sam walking suddenly by some instinct of watchfulness, saw first his master's empty bed and leapt to his feet. Then he saw two dark figures, Frodo and the man, framed in the archway, which was now filled with a pale white light. He hurried after them, past rows of men sleeping on mattresses along the wall. As he went by the cave mouth, he saw that the curtain was now becoming a dazzling veil of silk and pearls and silver thread, melting icicles of moonlight. But he did not pause to admire it, and turning aside, he followed his master through the narrow doorway in the hall of the cave. They went first along the black passage, then up many wet steps, and so came to the small flat landing cut within the stone and lit in a pale sky, gleaming high above from a long, deep shaft. From here, two flights of steps led, one going on, as if it seemed, up into the high bank of the stream, the other turning away to the left. They followed. It wound its way like a turret stair. At last, they came out of the stony darkness and looked about. They were in a wide flat rock without rail or parapet. At their right, eastwards, the torrent fell, splashing over many terraces, and then, pouring down a steep race, it filled with a smooth-hewn channel, with a dark force of water, flecked with foam, and curling and rushing almost at the feet as it plunged sheer over the edge, and yawned upon the left. A man stood there, near the brink, silent, gazing down. Frodo turned to watch the sleek necks of the water as they curved and died. Then he lifted his eyes far away. The world was quiet and cold, as if dawn were near. Far off in the west, the full moon was sinking round and wide. Pale mists shimmered in the great vale below, a wide gulf of silver frame, beneath which rolled beyond, and in it glinted here and there, cold, sharp, remote, white as the teeth of ghosts, the peaks of arid Nimraz, the white mountains of the realm of Gondor, tipped with everlasting snow. For a while Frodo stood there on the high stone, and a shiver ran through him, wondering if anywhere in the vastness of the nightlands his old companions walked or slept, or lay dead, shrouded in mist. Why was he brought here out of a forgetful sleep? Sam was eager for an answer to the same question, and could not refrain himself from muttering for his master's ear alone as he thought, "It's a fine view, no doubt, Mr. Frodo, but cheerly in the heart. No mention of the bones. What's going on?" Faramir heard and answered, "Moonset over Gondor. Fair Ithilien, as he goes from Middle-earth, glances upon the white locks of old Minadorlan. It is worth a few shivers. But that is not what I brought you to see. Though, as for you, Samwise, you were not brought, and do but pay the penalty for your watchfulness. A draught of wine shall amend it. Come now, look." He stepped up the side of the silent sentinel on the dark edge, and Frodo followed. Sam hung back. He already felt insecure enough on his high, wet platform. Faramir and Frodo looked down, far below as they saw white waters, and I'm going to see some white waters right now. Maybe I should open them. Pausing's good as long as you don't make a habit of it. But anyway, okay. Far below them, they saw the white waters pour into a foaming bowl and swirl darkly about a deep oval basin in the walks until they found their way out again through a narrow gate and flowed away, fuming and chattering, into calmer and more level reaches. The moonlight still slanted down to the fall's foot and gleamed on the ripples of the basin. Presently Frodo was aware of the small dark thing on the near bank, but even as he looked at it, it dived and vanished just beyond the boil and the bubble of the fall, cleaving the black water as neatly as an arrow or as an edgewise stone. Faramir turned to the man at his side. "Now what would you say that is, Anborn? A squirrel or a kingfisher? Are there black kingfishers in the night pools of Mirkwood?" "It is not a bird, whatever else it may be," answered Anborn. "It has 4 limbs and dives manwise. A pretty mastery of the craft it shows. What is it? Seeking a way up behind us in the curtain to our hidings? It seems we are discovered at last. I have my bow here, and I have posted at other archers, nigh as good as marksmen as myself on either bank. We only wait for your command to shoot, Captain." "Shall we shoot?" said Faramir, turning quickly to Frodo. Frodo did not answer. Then, "No," he said. "No, I beg you not to." If Sam had dared, he would have said, "Yes, I quicker you and louder." He could not see, he could not have guessed well enough what the words were they were looking at. "You know then what this thing is," said Faramir. "Come now, you have seen. Tell me why it should be spared. In all our words together you have not once spoken of your gangrel companion, and I let him be for some time. He could wait until he was caught and brought before me. I sent my keenest huntsman to keep him, but he slipped from them, and they had no sight of him till now, save Annun here, who at the dusk evening. But now he has done worse than trespass than the only coney snaring at the uplands. He has dared to come to the Henneth, and his life is forfeit. I marvel at the creature, so secret as and so sly as is, to come sporting into the pool before our very window. Does he think that we men sleep without watch all night? Why does he do so?" "There are two answers, I think," said Frodo. "For one thing, he knows little of men. And sly though he is, your refuge is so hidden that perhaps he does not know the men are concealed here. For another, I think that he is allured here by a mastering desire, stronger than his caution." "He is lured here by you, you say?" said Faramir in a lower voice. Does he know then of your burden?" "Indeed, yes. He bore it for himself many years." "He bore it?" said Faramir, breathing sharply in his wonder. "This matter winds itself ever new riddles. Then why is he pursuing it?" "Maybe it is precious to him. But I did not speak of that." "What then does the creature seek?" "Fish," said Frodo. "Look!" They peered down at the dark pool. A little black head appeared at the far end of the basin, just out of the deep shadow of the walks. There was a brief silver glint and a swirl of many tiny ripples. It swam to the side, and then with a marvelous agility, a frog-like creature climbed up out of the water and up to the bank. At once sat down and began to gnaw at a small silver thing that glittered as it turned. The last rays of the moon were now falling behind the stony wall at the pool's end. Faramir laughed softly. "Fish! It is less a perilous hunger, or maybe not. Fish from the pool of Henneth may cost him all he has to give." "Now I have him at arrow point," said Annun. "Shall I not shoot, Captain? From coming unbidden to this place that death is the law." "Wait, Annun," said Faramir. "This is a harder matter than it seems. What have you to say now, Frodo? Why should we spare?" "This creature is wretched and hungry," said Frodo, "and unaware of his danger. And Gandalf, your Menethir, would have bidden you not to slay him for that reason, and for others. He forbade the elves to do so. I do not know clearly why, and of what I guess I cannot speak openly but here. But this creature is in some ways bound up with my errand. Until you found us and took us, he was my guide." "Your guide?" "The matter becomes even stranger. I would do much for you, Frodo, but this I cannot grant, to let the sly wanderer go free of his own will from here, to join you later if it please him, or to be caught by the orcs and tell all he knows under the threat of pain. He must be slain or taken. Slain if he cannot be taken swiftly. But how about this slippery thing of many guises be caught, save by feathered shaft? Let me go down quietly to him. You may keep your bows bent, and shoot me at least if I fail. I shall not run away. Go then and be swift. If he comes off alive, he should be your faithful servant for the rest of his unhappy days. Lead Frodo down to the bank, Annun, and go softly. The thing has nose and ears. Give me your bow." Annun grunted, and led the way down the winding stair to the landing, and then up the stair, until they at last came to the narrow opening shrouded with the thick bushes. Passing silently through, Frodo found himself on the top of a southern bank at the pool. It was now dark, and the falls were pale and grey, reflecting only the lingering moonlight of the western sky. He could not see Gollum. He bent forward a short way, and Annun climbed softly behind him. "Go on," he breathed into Frodo's ear. "He have a care to your right. If you fall in the pool, then no one but your fishing friend can help you. And forget not that there are bowmen near at the hand, though you may not see them." Frodo crept forward, using his hands, Gollum-like, to feel his way to steady himself. The rocks were for the most part flat and smooth, but slippery. He halted, listening. At first he could hear no sound but the unceasing rush of the fall behind him. Then presently he heard, not far ahead, a hissing murmur. "Fish! Nice fish!
white face has vanished, my precious. At last, yes. Now we can eat fish in peace. No, not in peace, precious, for precious is lost. Yes, lost. Dirty habits, nasty habits. Gone and left us, Gollum, and precious is gone. Only poor Smeagol all alone. No precious. Nasty men, they take it, steal my precious. Thieves, we hate them. Fish, nice fish. Makes us strong, makes eyes bright, fingers tight, yes. Throttle them, precious. Throttle them all if we get chances. Nice fish, nice fish.
So it went on, almost as unceasing as the waterfall, only interrupted by a faint noise of slavering and gurgling. Frodo shivered, listening with pity and disgust. He wished he could stop, that he had never need hear that voice again. Anborn was not far behind. He could creep back and ask him to get the huntsman to shoot. They would probably get close, while Gollum was gorging and off his guard. If only one shot, Frodo would be rid of the miserable voice forever. But no, Gollum had a claim on him now. The servant had a claim on his master for service, even service in fear. They would have found it in the dead marshes, but for Gollum. Frodo knew, too, somehow, quite clearly, that Gandalf would not have wished it. "Smeagol!" he cried softly.
Fish, nice fish.
"Smeagol!" The voice stopped.
Smeagol.
"Master has come to look for you. Master is here. Come, Smeagol." There was no answer but a soft hiss, or as an intake of breath. "Come, Smeagol," said Frodo. "We are in danger. Men will kill you if they find you. Come quickly if you wish to escape death. Come to Master."
No, said the voice. Not nice, Master. Leaves poor Smeagol and goes with new friends. Master can wait. Smeagol hasn't finished.
"There's no time," said Frodo. "Bring fish with you. Come."
No, must finish fish.
"Smeagol, Precious will be angry. I shall talk to Precious. I shall take Precious, and I shall say, 'Make him swallow the bones and choke. Never taste the fish. Come, Precious is waiting.'" There was a sharp hiss. Presently, out of the darkness, Gollum came crawling on all fours, like an erring dog called to heel. He had had half-eaten fish in his mouth and another in his hand. He came close to Frodo, almost nose to nose, and sniffed at him. His pale eyes were shining. Then he took the fish out of his mouth and stood up.
Nice, Master. Nice, Hobbit. Come back to poor Smeagol. Good Smeagol comes. Now let's go, quickly, yes, through the trees, while the faces are dark. Yes, come, let's go.
"Yes, we'll go soon, but not all at once. I will go with you as you promised. I promised again, but not now. You are not yet safe. I will save you, but you must trust me."
We must trust Master? Why? Why not go at once? Where's the other one, the cross rude Hobbit? Where is he?
"Away up there," pointing to the Westfall. I'm not going with him. We must go back to him." His heart sank. This was too much like trickery. He did not really fear that Faramir would allow Gollum to be killed, but he would probably make him prisoner and bind him, and certainly that Frodo would not think of its treachery to the poor treacherous creature. It would probably be impossible ever to make him understand or believe that Frodo had saved his life the only way he could. What else could he do? To keep faith as near he might be with both sides. "Come," he said, "or the Precious will be very angry. We are going back up now, upstream. Go on, go on. You go in front." Gollum crawled along close to the brink of the little way, snuffling and suspicious. Presently he stopped and raised his head.
Something's there, he said. Not a Hobbit.
Suddenly he turned back. A green light was flickering in his bulging eyes.
"Master! Master! Wicked tricksy false!"
He spat and stretched out his long arms with the white snapping fingers. At that moment the great black shape of Anborn loomed up behind him and came down on him. A strong hand took him into the nape of the neck and pinned him down. He twisted like lightning, all wet and slimy as he was, wriggling like an eel, biting and scratching like a cat. But two more men came up from the shadows. "Hold still," said one, "or we'll stick you as full of pins as a hedgehog. Hold still." Gollum went limp and began to whine and weep. They tied him, none too gently. "Easy, easy," said Frodo. "He has no strength to match you. Don't hurt him. If you can help it, he'll be quieter. If you don't, Smeagol, they won't hurt you. I'll go with you, and you shall come no harm, not unless they kill me too. Trust, Master." Gollum turned and spat at him. The men picked him up with a hood over his eyes and carried him off. Frodo allowed them, feeling very wretched. They went through the opening behind the bushes and back, down the stairs and passages into the cave, 2 or 3 torches had been lit. Men were stirring. Sam was there, and he gave him a queer look the limp bundle of the men carried. "Got him?" he said to Frodo. "Yes." "Well, no, I didn't get him. He came to me because he trusted me at first, I'm afraid. I did not want him tied up like this. I hope it will be all right, but I hate this whole business." "So do I," said Sam, "and nothing will ever be right where that piece of misery is." A man came and beckoned the hobbits and took them to the recess at the back of the cave. Faramir was sitting near the chair, and the lamp had been rekindled in its niche above his head. He signed to them to sit down on the stools beside him. "Bring wine for the guests, and bring the prisoner to me." The wine was brought, and then Anborn came carrying Gollum. He removed the cover of Gollum's head and set it at his feet, and standing behind him to support him, Gollum blinked, hooding the malice of his eyes with their heavy pale lids. A very miserable creature he looked, dripping and dank, smelling of fish. He still clutched one in his hand. His sparse locks were hanging like rank weed over his bony brows. His nose was sniveling.
Loose us, he said. "The cord hurts us, yes it does, it hurts us, and we've done nothing."
"Nothing," said Faramir, looking at the wretched creature with a keen glance, but without expression in his face, either of anger, pity, or wonder. "Nothing. Have you never done anything worthy of binding or worse punishment? However, that is not for me to judge, happily. But tonight you have come where it is death to come. The fish of this pool are dearly bought." Gollum dropped the fish from his hand.
"Don't want fish."
"The price is not set on the fish. Only to come here and to look in the pool bears the penalty of death. I have spared you so far at the prayer of Frodo here, who says that of him at least you have deserved some thanks. But you must also satisfy me. What is your name? Whence do you come, and whither do you go? What is your business?"
"We are lost, said Gollum. "No name, no business, no precious, no nothing. Only empty, only hungry. Yes, we are hungry. A few little fishes, nasty, bony little fishes, for a poor creature, and they say death. So wise they are, just so very just."
"Not very wise, but just. Yes, perhaps, just as our little wisdom allows. Unloose him, Frodo." Faramir took a small nail knife from his belt and handed it to Frodo. Gollum, misunderstanding the gesture, squealed and fell down. "Now, Smeagol," said Frodo, "you must trust me. I will not desert you. Answer truthfully if you can, if it will not do you any harm." He cut the cords on Gollum's wrists and ankles and raised him to his feet. "Come hither," said Faramir. "Look at me. Do you know the name of this place? Have you been here before?" Slowly, Gollum raised his eyes and looked unwillingly into Faramir's. All light went out of them, and they stared bleak and pale for a moment into the clear, unwavering eyes of a man of Gondor. There was a silence. Then Gollum dropped his head and shrank down until he was squatting on the floor, shivering.
"We doesn't know, and we doesn't want to know," he whimpered. "Never came here, never come again."
"These are locked doors and closed windows in your mind, and dark rooms behind them. But in this I judge that you speak the truth. It is well for you. What oath will you swear never to return, and never to lead any living creature hither by word or sign?"
"Master knows. Yes, he knows. We will promise, Master, if he saves us. We'll promise it, yes."
He crawled to Frodo's feet.
"Save us, nice Master," he whined. "Smeagol promises to Precious. Promises faithfully. Never come again, never speak. No, never. No, Precious, no."
"Are you satisfied?" said Faramir.
"Yes," said Frodo.
"At least you must never either accept this promise or carry out your law. You will get no more. But I promised that if he came to me, he should not be harmed, and I would not be proved faithless." Faramir sat for a moment. "Very good. I surrender to you your master, to Frodo, son of Drogo. Let him declare what he will do with you."
"But Lord Faramir," said Frodo, bowing, "you have not yet declared your own will with the said Frodo. Until that is made known, he cannot shape his plans for himself or his companions. Your judgment was postponed until the morning, but now it is at hand."
"Then I will declare my doom," said Faramir. As for you, Frodo, insofar lies in me under the higher authority, I declare you free in the realm of Gondor, to the furthest of its ancient bounds, save only that neither you or anyone else you know come into this place unbidden. This doom shall stand for a year and a day, and then cease, unless you shall before the term come to Minas Tirith and present yourself to the Lord and Steward of the city. Then I will entreat him to confirm what I have done, and to make it lifelong. In the meantime, whomsoever you take under your protection shall be under my protection, and under the shield of Gondor. Are you answered? Frodo bowed low. I am answered, he said, and I place myself at your service, if that is any worth to one so high and honorable. It is of great worth. And now, do you take this creature, this Smeagol, under your protection? I do take Smeagol under my protection. Sam sighed audibly, and nodded the courtesies, of which, as at any hobbit, he would be thoroughly approved. Indeed, in the Shire, such a matter would have required a great many more words and vows. Then I say to you, said Faramir, turning to Gollum, you are under doom of death. But while you walk with Frodo, you are safe for our part. Yet if you should ever be found by any man of Gondor astray without him, then doom shall fall. And may death find you swiftly within Gondor or without, if you do not serve him well. Now answer me, whither would you go? You were his guide, he says. Whither were you leading him? Gollum made no reply. This I will not have secret. Answer me, or I will reverse my judgment. Still Gollum did not answer. I will answer for him, said Frodo. He brought me to the Black Gate, as I asked, but it was unpassable. There is no open gate to the nameless land, said Faramir. Seeing this, we turned aside and came by the southward road, Frodo continued, for he said that there is, or there may be, a path to the Minas Ithil. Minas Morgul, said Faramir. I do not know clearly, said Frodo, but the path climbs, I think, up into the mountains on the northern side of the vale where the old city stands. If it goes to a high cleft, and so down too, which is beyond. Do you know the name of that high pass? No. It is called Cirith Ungol. Gollum hissed sharply and began muttering to himself. Is that not a name? Said Faramir, turning to him.
No,
Said Gollum, and he squealed as if something had stabbed him.
yes, we have heard the name once. But what does this name matter to us? Master says he must get in, so we must try. There is no other way but to try, no.
No other way? Said Faramir. Now do you know that? And who has explored all the confines of the dark realm? He looked long and thoughtfully at Gollum. Presently he spoke again. Take this creature away, unborn. Treat him gently, but watch him. And do not you, Smeagol, try to dive into the falls. The rocks have such teeth there as would slay you before your time. Leave us now and take your fish. Anborn went out, and Gollum went cringing before him. The curtain was drawn across the recess. I'm going to have a sip of water. Do you want to take over for the last little bit, or are you good? Mm-hmm. All right. No, I'm fine. I'm at your pleasure. All right. Oh, don't stop. Okay. Now that I'm in full 12th Doctor garb, I'm ready to go. Frodo, I think you do very unwisely in this, said Faramir. I do not think you should go with this creature. It is wicked. No, not altogether wicked, said Frodo. Not wholly, perhaps, said Faramir. But malice eats it like a canker, and the evil is growing. He will lead you to no good. If you will part with him, I will give him safe conduct and guidance to any point in the borders of Gondor that he may name. He would not take it, said Frodo. He would follow me long after he is done, and I have promised many times to take him under my protection and to go where he led. You would not ask me to break my faith with him? No, but my heart would. For it seems less evil to counsel another man to break troth than to do one himself, especially if one sees a friend bound unwitting to his own harm. But no, if he will go with you, you must now endure him. But I do not think you are beholden to the Cirith Ungol, of which he told you less than he knows. That much I perceived clearly in his mind. Do not go to Cirith Ungol. Where then shall I go? Back to the Black Gate and deliver myself to the guard? What do you know against this place that makes its name so dreadful? Nothing certain. We of Gondor do not ever pass east of the road of these days, and none of the younger men has ever done so, nor has any ever set foot in the mountains of Shadow. Of them we only know old report and the rumor of bygone days, but there is some dark terror that dwells in the passes above Minas Morgul. If Cirith Ungol is named, old men and masters of lore will blanch and fall silent. The valley of Minas Morgul passed into evil very, very long ago, and it was a menace and a dread while the banished enemy dwelt yet far away, and Ithilien is still one of for the most part, in our keeping. As you know, that city was once a strong place, proud and fair, Minas Ithil, the twin sister of our own city. But it was taken by fell men whom the enemy in his first strength had dominated, and who wandered homeless and masterless after his fall. It is said that the lords were men of Numenor, who had fallen into dark wickedness. To them the enemy has given rings of power, and he hath devoured them. Living ghosts they became, terrible and evil. Even after his going they took Minas Ithil and dwelt there, and they filled it, and all the valley about with decay, and it seemed, and it was not so, for a shapeless fear lived within the ruined walls. 9 lords were there, and after the return of their master, which they aided and prepared in secret, they grew strong again. Then the 9 riders issued forth from the gates of horror, and we could not withstand them. Do not approach their citadel. You will be espied. It is the place of sleepless malice, full of lidless eyes. Do not go that way. But where else will you direct me? Said Frodo. You cannot yourself, you say, guide me to the mountains, nor over them. But over the mountains I am bound by solemn undertaking to the council, to find a way or perish in the seeking. And if I should turn back, refusing the road to its bitter end, then shall I go among elves or men? Would you have me come to Gondor with this thing? The thing that drove your brother mad and with desire? What spell would work in Minas Tirith? Shall there be 2 cities of Minas Morgul, grinning at each other from across land filled with rottenness? I would not have it so, said Faramir. Then what would you have me do? I know not. Only I would not have you go to death or to torment, and I do not think that Mithendir would have chosen this way. Yet, since he is gone, I must take such paths as I can find, and there is no time for such searching, for such long searching, said Frodo. It is a hard doom and a hopeless errand, said Faramir, but at least remember my warning. Beware of this guide Smeagol. He has done murder before now. I read it in him. Well, so we meet and part, Frodo, son of Drogo. You have no need of soft words. I do not hope to see you again on any other day under the sun. But you shall go now with my blessing upon you and upon all your people. Rest a little while food is prepared for you. I would gladly learn how this creeping Smeagol became possessed of this thing of which we speak, and how he lost it, but I will not now trouble you. If ever beyond hope you return from the lands of the living, and we retell our tales, sitting by a wall in the sun, laughing at old grief, you shall tell me then. Until that time, or some other time, beyond the vision of the seeing stones of Numenor, farewell. He rose and bowed low to Frodo, and drawing the curtain, passed out into the cave. End of chapter 6. Oh, yes. Thank you. And I suppose this is it for the evening. All right. Ooh.